to stay. Item 2 of the agenda, which is the record of the last meeting. I'm sure you've all read the paperwork. Are there any things that need to be changed, or am I able to sign those? Yep, sign those. Brilliant, thank you. Any urgent matters arising? None? Okay, I like that. Item 4, peculiar disposory interests or any other significant interests. There's none from our side. Anybody else? No, brilliant. Okay, so we're down to item 5 and we've got 45 minutes to talk to our fabulous portfolio holder for children's services, Councillor Adam Price, who's already taken the hot seat. Thank you, Adam. I might indulge myself as I've got the mic, just to say you've had a busy year. What are you most proud of, and how are you celebrating that success with the hard-working people of Medway?
Well, thank you, Chair, and also thank you for your leadership of children's and young people's overview and like Scrutiny. Yes, I've got a lot to be proud of on behalf of the amazing staff and the leaders that we have within children's services at Medway. The most recent one, of course, is the announcement that Medway is going to be one of the 7 authorities selected to run a kinship pilot. So we do have kinship carers within Medway, but they have to be means tested, etc., for any allowance which they get. But under the pilot, which is going to operate for 3.5 years, they'll be eligible to be paid up to £300 per week for looking after a family member that they've stepped up to look after in order to keep them in a stable home. And that's really good news, and I'm sure you didn't mind me starting with that, because it's after February. I'm supposed to talk about up to February, but this is the latest news off the press. Other things which I am proud of is the dialogue which I've maintained with Bailey, and of course other corporate parenting members have also maintained a dialogue with their own buddies that they've been teamed up with. These are looked after children, which under this initiative, I've maintained a dialogue with Bailey through this reverse buddy scheme, and I was pleased to receive his endorsement at a meeting of corporate parenting, which was nice. It's given me an insight into what it is like to be looked after child within Medway. Also, I have to pay tribute to Child Friendly Medway, who this year, under the Make a Difference Awards, received an award from their peer council colleagues for making a difference for children and young people within Medway. So I think that's worth celebrating. Obviously, Ofsted have come, and they've done 2 focus visits, one in the early part of the year and one in November. and both were good visits, and we are working on the action plans arising from both of those. And obviously, we've had our Parklands and Eden House have been inspected, and they've both received good judgments from Ofsted during the year. And after the Parklands one, because it was the third year in a row that they got that, I was pleased to be able to send a video to all the staff who have been involved in these visits to thank them personally on your behalf, and more importantly, on behalf of the children and young people and the families of Medway. So I think those are the things which I've singled out in terms of being proud of. Thank you very much.
So I'll open it up to the floor then, please. Okay, thank you. Lovely. Okay, so we'll go for, I'm really sorry, Adrian was first, Jim was second, then we've got Demola and Sharon. Oh, and Leah, sorry. Thank you. Oh, more hands, Demola, Leah, Mark. Brilliant, that's good. Stephen and Douglas. And Lou, thank you. I think I've got you all. Demola.
So just one question from me. Thanks, Adam, for the report. How are children's voices directly shaping decisions, and how do you intend to show that impact to members over the coming year?
I'll just put my mic on as well. I'll just make a note of that. Thank you. So I have to start off with what Ofsted said when they came and did our last full ILAC visit, that children matter in Medway, and that still is present to this day. They really are at the heart of everything that we do. And the Children's Service takes as many opportunities as they can to hear and learn from children and young people. The buddy scheme, which I've already touched on, that I take part in, as well as others on corporate parenting, is a great way to do this. We also hear children's voices through our audits, our inspections, direct work, Mind of My Own app, and through the Young Lives Foundation, and also, of course, from our youth service. Within the corporate parenting service, we have both a participation worker and an aspirations worker, working alongside social workers and personal advisors. Now, events throughout the year are developed alongside children and young people, such as our summer barbecue, our Time to Shine awards events, cultural and faith events. And I'm also pleased to say that as far as our young people, refugees, are concerned, a bike pilot took place during the course of this year, and this was undertaken following our refugee young people raising an issue with the cost and restriction of public transport. They were taught how to build and maintain a bike, including safe use and the use of safety equipment. They also, in the process, gained a qualification from completing this programme. During the course of the year, there's been joint work between our young people and public health colleagues that's been undertaken and presented at Corporate Parenting Board. Young people expressed challenges with how to access and understand health pathways, and from this went on to develop bite-sized educational learning videos. It would be remiss of me not to mention our Young Inspectors programme. So that this programme gains the support and voice of young people when commissioning, identifying and commissioning placements for children and young people. Obviously we did listen to children's views when we appointed our Assistant Director, Kelly, Cogger, and I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Kelly. I should have mentioned that in my proud moments right at the start, but I mention it now. Kelly's been with Medway Council for many years, woken up, I was going to say man and boy, but it would be woman and girl in your case, but anyway. Yeah, so children's lived experience are also captured in the data, which supports ongoing commissions and service development to ensure that their needs are supported. An example of this is the high level of children who are at risk of exploitation. We developed the WASP, that stands, that's the Wraparound Adolescent Support Programme, WASP, to enable a practitioner to be there to provide support when they want it. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I have Adrian, then Jim next? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Adam. Adam, I've got a couple of questions for you. Before I do that, I'd like to join you in saying how good it is to hear that we're getting extra funding for kinship carers. Since I've been on the fostering panel, it's been interesting to see how many kinship carers that we have got, and also how many of those are grandparents of often quite young children. So I think that would be a nice thing to give them a little bit of extra support, because they're doing a really, really splendid job, and often with some quite challenging young children as well. So my two questions, Adam, are in the report for the JTAI in April last year, the inspectors reported that the quality impact of social work practice remained variable, with improvements described as fragile and not yet fully embedded, stating that overall progress had been constrained by increased service demand, instability in senior leadership, and ongoing workforce recruitment and retention challenges. So I'd like to know, Adam, what your response to those comments was. And the second one is, in order to produce a balanced budget for this 2025-26 financial year, your Labour administration had to borrow 18.81 million, and you've now just asked to borrow a further 9.9 million, which totals 28.84 million in extra borrowing to cover revenue spending in this financial year. This equates to a 5.71% overspend compared with the budget presented in this room last year. This is clearly unsustainable. Adam, could you indicate to us what you personally have undertaken to try and keep expenditure under control in your areas of responsibility, please?
Okay, thank you, Adrian. So as I understand it, the question is, first of all, some of the comments which Ofsted made on their focus visit back in April around the work of our social workers, and then the second area is to do with the budget. So I'll answer those in turn. If you just bear with me a moment. So in answer to that first one, as I understand it, what they were expressing concern about is the need for consistent reporting of the work that they've been doing. So it isn't the case that they haven't been doing the work. So we know that we've got very high caseloads, for instance, but what we've been working on a lot is making sure that our social workers place their priority in terms of recording all of their visits, so that when Ofsted come, they can actually see what they've been doing, rather than having to look around in order to be able to see that. So the other aspect of that obviously relates to recruitment and retention, and I'm really pleased that during the course of the last year we've had more of our social workers come over to join the Medway family. And we've also been able to appoint like a lot of leaders within our children's services like directorate. So we're up to full like establishment now. And not only that, but in the budget for last year, there was like provision for assistant team managers as well. So they've been like supporting some of the managers. So what actually happens is that during the course of the year, the like directorates, they have a constant cycle whereby they're hearing from the social workers, they're praising the good work that's being done and sharing that, and obviously drawing lessons from some of the areas which need to be like developed on that, and if need be, that could like eventually lead to like performance and like monitoring. But the staff are being given every like opportunity to be able to find out where they can improve and to learn from their peers and obviously from their managers. So that I think sort of like addresses that question. Moving on to the budget, obviously you will have heard the leader talk about the mess that was found, not his words, but the words of SIPFA when we called them in to look at the finances. But I'm very, and obviously that has led towards us getting like additional like support, external like financial support. And that was going to be on a 3-year basis, and this is the 3rd year that we've drawn upon that. We've got every expectation that next year that we won't have to draw on any external financial like support. We've also seen now that the government has brought in now 3-year funding, which is going to make it a lot easier for council services to be able to plan ahead rather than just on an annual basis. So, but in that process, we didn't get the full allocation that we were expecting in year 1. So we had to find, as a council, we had to find 8 million, and children's services share of that was around 2 million. And I can just give you some idea as to how we managed to like address that to be able to keep the budget like together. But before I do that, I can also say that in year, children's social care have been able to meet virtually all of the budget savings that they were asked to during the year. So by the 3rd quarter, they were already 84% like along the way towards meeting those savings. So yes, the main area where we're seeing overspend fits in with what also the leader, Vince Maple, has said, is that we spend £1.35 million per day on our services, including children's care, adult social care, and obviously temporary housing. So that's, because we are a statutory service, we have to be able to like respond. One of the things which I'm going to be looking into with the Director of Children's Care, Leanne Farrach, is to pay even further attention on our placements, because the placements outside of the borough is the main area which is leading towards pressure on our budget. I'm also pleased because I mentioned about more of our social workers joining us, working for Medway rather than through agencies. That's then led to other changes, such as a more thought-through induction process whereby staff that are joining us aren't lumbered with a full caseload straight away. They've actually taken through an induction program, so like before actually taking on their cases. So all in all, I think we're doing pretty well as a director, but I thank you for your question. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Adam, for your report. Reading the report is very, very encouraging. It gives a good picture of the whole state of the way the council looks after children within the area. The budget being one concern, of course, and the overspend, but I was just interested, with it just over a year left of your administration before the elections in May next year, I was just interested to know what do you think, as an overview, what are the real pinch points and the concerns you've got for the next sort of 12 to 15 months that you really want to tackle, that you've struggled with for the first 3 years?
Well, I would like to refute the fact that we've been struggling over the last 3 years, but I'd like to pay tribute to my predecessor, because she and the Conservative administration at that time did have quite a hand working alongside the managers in terms of getting the judgment of good the first time we've had that judgment. So that wasn't just within those first few weeks and months when we took over the administration. So there's been cross-party working on that, and I'd like to think also that Children's Services is like one of those services whereby we work across party lines in order to be able to achieve, what we need to for our children and young people. So just getting back to the thrust of your question, you're asking about the next year or so. From a finance point of view, struggle? Yeah, okay, well, those struggles, I think, will be maintaining our workforce that we've got now, trying to make sure that their caseload isn't excessive. I'm very pleased to hear about the outcome of the pilot of Magic Notes, which has taken place within our adult social care service, and the reports I've had from adult social care and from Councillor Theresa Murray is that is making an impact in terms of saving our practitioners time, because more of what they've been able to do in their visits can more swiftly be replicated in terms of draft notes. They have to look through and they have to check that they're accurate. So it is a struggle, in short, in answer to your question, but it is something which I've got every indication now that the morale is improving since we've had Kelly, and she's been able to make those appointments to her team. And obviously there were such things as the weekly email which goes around highlighting really good work, and there's lots of other feedback and mechanisms. And I myself have been privileged to be able to take part in some of the safeguarding visits. So I get a direct line of sight, hearing directly from children and families about the service that they're receiving from our children's social care staff. So it is pressured, but I'm very pleased, and I've heard recently from Leanne Farrach that Medway has been praised for what they've been doing in the children's social care services from the Department for Education. So that's pleasing as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah, then Stephen, then Mark.
So firstly, to thank you for the report, and to say that I also really I think the buddy system is something we've done really well through corporate parenting. I think everybody that's on there really welcomes that. And then I felt that the report really showed that there's progress being made on the journey towards outstanding. But I wondered if I could check what we're doing to ensure that that consistency sits across all the teams, and how we make sure that the improvements are being embedded and will be sustainable to get us there. Thanks.
Sorry, putting my mic on again. Thank you, Leah. So we have a great practice and development service within Medway. We have 7 practice development leads, a practice development service manager, and a principal social worker. This team supports the quality assurance activity across the service. Now, audits are undertaken monthly, which identifies strengths and also areas of development that I was referring to earlier on. So these strengths are actually celebrated and can be used as exemplars. And where there are areas for development, the training programme for practitioners is aligned to this in order to support practice improvement. The service has a continuous improvement plan, which is overseen by the Multi-Agency Continuous Improvement Board, of which I'm a member. And this improvement plan focuses on the areas of improvement needed, identified by audits, internal and external reviews, as well as findings from inspections. This is linked with individual service plans, so each service understands the improvements that are needed for them and how this links into the overall improvement journey for children. As I say, we're aiming for solid good, if not outstanding. There's a real focus on high support and high challenge to staff, which I see evident within the Continuous Improvement Board and the Corporate Parenting Board, which you're on with me, as well as the Children's Oversight Meeting, which I chair, and I'm joined by my colleague, Councillor Tracy Coombs at. And that happens about 10 times a year. We have those reports coming direct to us from officers. Practitioners are supported where there are areas of weakness in their practice by additional training or one-to-one sessions, as well as action progressed where practice is not improving. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we've got Stephen. Yeah. Next.
Hi, Adam. So inclusion and send, yeah. So your report details there's encouraging progress on inclusion and keeping our kids in with send in mainstream education. So, what do you feel are the next steps to build on this success? So more children with more complex needs can thrive locally in Medway.
Right. Thank you very much, Stephen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my overview as lead member, because much of what you've been asking actually falls within my colleague Tracy Coombs' portfolio. So hold on to that question, because you may well be able to.
She's going to get the same question.
Oh, she's going to get the same question. So I'll give you my overview, which is so just like backtracking to what you said, you were talking about our inclusion. I'm very pleased to be able to report to you that we've had 3 inclusion conferences, including one which was just before Christmas, and they were attended on each time by a growing number of schools. So inclusion is something that we're very keen to be able to highlight and to celebrate, because we're hearing examples of some amazing practice both within our primary schools and our secondary schools. Now, the other thing which I've noticed has been a trend as well. We were an outlier at the start of this administration, whereby we had quite a relatively small percentage of our children with complex needs, SEND, going to schools within our borough. And over the course of the last few years during this administration, through various measures, but mainly obviously from the schools and the trusts themselves, that's now increased to a level of about 45% now. So that then is really good news, because it means that the children with the complex needs, more of them are actually going to school locally, which has got to be helpful to their education. But it also shows that the fact that the schools and Medway generally is becoming more inclusive, and is they're able to obviously some of them need the support of the EHCPs, but obviously we've had a recent report from the government around how children's social care is going to be adapted, and obviously SEND, which is the area that you're asking me about. The changes to EHCPs aren't going to be made straight away, but as I understand it, one of the main things being promulgated is that there will be eventually a review of the SEND plans, including EHCPs, at the stage whereby children go from primary into secondary school. And it's within the secondary school that area where we've seen this quite large increase in terms of taking children with like special needs, but also enabling them to be able to have their education locally within Medway and alongside their peers as well. So that's my overview for you there, and I'm sure you'll get the more detail from my colleague Tracy shortly. Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, Chair. And Adam, thank you for a really detailed report. And there is a lot to be proud of through the Children's Services team, especially with the in-house recruiting and making sure that we've not paying a middleman which is taking away from our children. I'm not sure this question comes under you, but I've looked at both yours and Tracy's, and it doesn't seem to come under anybody, so I'm going to ask you because it is to do with our children. Recently, letters have been going out to parents following the end of the Household Support Fund with regards to the holiday activities and food programme and the removal of food vouchers. There's a number of parents that are very concerned because everything's been tailored towards family hubs, also to the sports centres, Medway Park and Shrewsbury Sports Centre, giving activities, which also includes food as well. But if you go to the areas like Rainham, they're not actually close to any of these areas. I'm just ask what's being done for these disadvantaged parents that will struggle to get them to the places where these activities are going ahead. Thank you.
So the like holiday activity plans, like etc., that's been mainly geared towards, and the priority has been given towards placements during the holidays for our children with like special needs. They're always given the first like opportunity to be able to take those. As I understand it, these changes are being like promulgated, but we're not sure exactly when it is going to happen. So I've heard, the latest that I've heard is that it's probably still going to happen during the Easter holidays and possibly the summer holidays as well. And it won't have like escaped your notice that there've been sort of like a number of U-turns like within the governments, and I'd like to think that perhaps this might be one area. But also, in fairness, I'd like to say that there is an element there of where we need parents and carers to, like over a period of time, become more like resilient. So the economy is starting to like pick up now, and so just because we've had those schemes over the first few years of this administration, because of the Labour government and the Labour Council, it has made a real impact on the lives of those children during those school holidays, and we all saw what happened when a famous footballer took on board the need for meals to be provided during the school holidays and how. So the short answer to your question is that let's wait and see when that's going to happen. I'd like to think that there's going to be some like resilience so that our parents haven't got to rely on these schemes for infinity, as it were. The early indications that I have are that such changes aren't necessarily going to be immediate, but let's wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon, then Douglas.
Thanks, Joe. Adam, so many good stuff to talk about. And a lot of what I wanted to say has already been asked, but I just want to hear it again because I like hearing good news. So the first thing is really brilliant news about kinship carers, as I know quite a few personally, and it's very good news. The buddy scheme, I think, is one of, I say this all the time, is one of corporate parenting's biggest successes. And it really warms my heart to hear you talk about how involved lived experience and the voices of young people have really meshed in to everything and the services we're doing. So I think that, you know, really does need to be celebrated. But the report does highlight that, you know, the high demand of casework on the staff, and I know that recruitment is really positive at the moment. I see the adverts, and you know, it is really encouraging. But do we have a strategy, like a workforce strategy going forward, to, you know, just to keep this quality that we've got and all this momentum that we've got going forward, and to look after the staff well-being? And I don't know, just to carry on the good work, we need to know that we've got strategy behind it, that we can keep it, sustain the improvements going forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson or Shaz or Sharon, but also can I take the opportunity to congratulate you and my ward colleague Douglas Hamandashay for your elevation to Deputy Mayor and Mayor for the forthcoming year, and I'll be really pleased to be able to do closer work with you on celebrating the amazing achievements of our children and young people during the course of that year. So thank you for that. So in answer to your question about workforce pressure and also the quality of the work which they are doing, to retain and recruit staff is significantly linked to sustaining and driving improvements. The service has significantly focused on, as I mentioned earlier on, induction into the service, so they're not immediately under the pressure of a big caseload in the first days when they join. And that's for both permanent and our locum staff. I'm really pleased that we've been looking after our locum staff as well. Some of our locum staff have been working with us for some time, but we always know that there is an element that we're going to always need some locum staff. This enables practitioners to have time to meet colleagues and partners from across the Medway, to undertake mandatory training, and to gain information about Medway, the place, because Medway is an amazing place, and some of our staff may not know about it if they've just been taking up appointments, moving in from other parts of the southeast. The information gained from stay and exit interviews is also helping the service know itself well. It's been reported at the Continuous Improvement Board by our colleagues in Workforce and the Staff Reference Group that this is working well. So the service has a robust recruitment campaign, and Councillor Jackson, I hope you've seen the video which I have, which is celebrating Medway as a place that you would want to work and where you would like to live and visit. The recruitment campaign for Children's Services is also being driven on social media, which has the potential to reach thousands. What I'm hearing, and Ofsted told us, that staff are happy and proud to work for Medway. It's evident that cultural changes across the service is supporting practitioners to recommend Medway as a place to work to their friends and others. I also hear about the visibility of Kelly and her senior leadership team, who are now all permanent employees, which will also support consistency across the service. And Kelly, I know, she herself holds fortnight keeping in touch sessions with practitioners where they share strengths, worries, and discuss areas of development. The staff reference group shared that these were positive and well-liked sessions, and that practitioners saw actions taken forward from these meetings. There's also the Friday update email, which I made brief reference to earlier, sent by Kelly towards staff, where success and positive feedback are acknowledged and celebrated. So we in Medway, we are invested in our practitioners across the service and want to make sure that Medway is the place that people want to work, to be rewarded financially within their pay, to have their practice celebrated, and to be supported to improve their performance when needed. And following one of the meetings that I go to as the lead member for Children's Services, I heard them because we had that situation where we had all the flags that were up, and I made it, I responded to an invitation to go to the staff meeting. They have a staff group which they talk about things amongst themselves, and I heard firsthand, because many of our social workers are from ethnic minorities, and they did feel very uneasy as I felt uneasy when all these flags went up. Not to say that we shouldn't celebrate our country, but I think everybody knew the overall message that was like behind that. So I was really pleased to be able to go along and listen to their concerns, and with my colleague make sure that we address that, and we managed to do that before Christmas, to take down those flags that had been flying half-mast for like a long time. So I hope that answers your question.
It did, lovely. Thanks a lot.
Douglas, Mayor-elect.
I've got to get used to this. I need to first start off by saying cool beans to Adam and Leah. The use of language is so important. It's vernacular that we're using to describe something that is good and positive. And language is going to feature in what I'm going to talk about now, particularly as it relates to young people. But first and foremost, the report is fantastic. It gives us a good building block to continue on and improving our services. There are places where we need to strengthen, which is good that they are highlighted, but I think we're in a far better place than we were previously. It promotes the engagement between young people through corporate parenting, and that engagement piece, which I'm so passionate about. I think everybody in this chamber are passionate about. Now back to cool beans and language, okay? How are we ensuring that children's lived experience is used to shape decisions moving forward? Because young people, we know, have their own vocabulary. Some of us struggle to understand what that is, but it's important that their lived experience, the way they're articulating themselves, the meaning behind the words, are not only captured, but also taken into consideration in terms of shaping the services that we are providing for them. So to the thrust of that question is really, how are we ensuring that's done? And how are we ensuring that the improvement outcomes are higher or greater than just the engagement tick box, i.e. we just spoke to young people, they said X, Y, and Z. We really want to have a strong evidence base to say, actually, we've listened to young people and we're shaping services around their hopes, wishes, concerns, and aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you. So here it's really about children's voice, but it also links in with the work of corporate parenting as well. Here I'd like to speak about my role. I'm very proud to have the role as chair of corporate parenting, but also I've been increasingly trying to work actively with Young Lives and with the looked after children that come to those meetings, to be able to, if you like, start to share that chair so that they're actually influencing. One of the things which has happened since I've been chair of corporate parenting is we always make sure that the children's voice report is taken first of all, right at the start of the meeting. So obviously there are certain corporate things that we have to go through, you know, more like traditional like reports, but we always make sure that it's the voice of the child which is right and properly, firmly number one on the agenda. I'd also like to say that being a corporate parent is everyone's responsibility. So the 59 councillors that we have, it's I'm just a member, but one of the 59. So we all play a role within that. So I would talk about the fact that we've been able to review the corporate parenting strategy, and the priorities which are listed there. One is safety and permanency. Second one is preparing children, young people for independence and adulthood. Third one is health and well-being. Fourth, education, training and employment. And the fifth one, very much linked to the thrust of your question, listening to you and participation. So a number of ways that this strategy is going to be taken forward. That we've got something called the Children in Care Scorecard, Young Lives Foundation quarterly reporting, corporate parenting annual reports, the IRO annual reports, and the actual priority subgroups, which forms part of the ongoing work of corporate parenting outside of the main corporate meetings of the Corporate Parenting Board. And I myself sit on the participation subgroup. One of the really important things that we've taken forward is the education of our looked after children. And we've been able to make some changes over the last year to be able to make that much stronger, so that, because looked after children, one of their most consistent parts of their lives, perhaps if, unfortunately, they've had broken homes, but if they're able to stay within their schools and achieve within education, then that's going to be really important, and it's going to be able to help them. So Ofsted told us in a recent focus visit that the IRO footprint was strong within Medway, so that was pleasing to hear that. So members will see the ongoing impact of this corporate parenting strategy via the annual reports which are presented here at Scrutiny, like they have been this year. So the IRO report, the report on fostering, adoption, etc., which will evidence the progress that we're making. Thank you very much for your question.
Lou.
Hi, Adam. I don't think anyone mentioned anything about virtual schools. Yeah, the virtual schools. So I have a question about that. We're seeing strong progress through the virtual school, including improving of personal educational plans and reduced exclusions. How will we ensure these gains are sustained and lead to consistently better attendance and outcomes for all care experienced children? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. Thank you for that question. So the relationship between our social care practitioners and educational practitioners has and continues to improve, as they need to work together to ensure that our children achieve. Personal education plans are prioritised and will continue to be by our staff to ensure that children and young people are supported to achieve their full potential. And obviously foster carers and providers also play a significant role in this, ensuring that they support children to access education. Education can be impacted upon when children and young people come into care due to the potential lack of suitable placements. However, wherever possible, the service try and support the children to remain at their school, and transport is often provided to enable this to happen. And I started to talk about the education subgroup of corporate parenting. So it was fed back to me by several of the members that we needed to strengthen the work of that group, because this is the group that looks at the work of the virtual school. And what's happened as a result is that Celia Buxton has taken over the chair of that group, and Joanne Howcroft-Scott has also reported back to me that she's very pleased with the achievements which are now being made, and that education is really being given a priority for our looked after children. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. Celia's leadership has made a real difference. Last but not least, Liz.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Adam, for the report. A lot of positivity in here, and a clear sort of desire and dedication from a lot of people to do the best for our children in Medway. I had a couple of questions with regards to sort of recruitment of foster carers and social workers. Great that the numbers are up. I'm just wondering about sort of how we're retaining them as well, because obviously I can see that, you know, we've reassessed our fees and allowances and increased in line, but sort of the concern is then independent agencies do the same and go above, but I'm not sure that it's always that when I sat on sort of fostering panel, I never heard that it was sort of money that would lead people away. It was more sort of kind of how they were. I think if someone's looked after, if they keep the same social worker, if they've got a great relationship with social worker, that's what sort of retains them. So how is that going? Are we managing to sort of retain our sort of foster carers and social workers? And then with regards to the sort of newly qualified social workers and is it the step up to social work, isn't it? Is that something are we continuing that with that sort of year on year? Because I think that's such a good programme when, you know, clearly investing in someone to, you know, put them through social work qualification. And I think they feel really valued with that, and sort of a real, you know, desire to stay and, you know, feel that sort of commitment, you know, to a place, not to sort of move on. They feel like, oh yeah, they put me through this, they got me where I am, and we're probably more likely to stay. So just sort of wanted to see if that is continuing. And my other question was just regarding the similar question to what Stephen had. So do you want to leave that one for Tracy with regards to sort of inclusion numbers?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your question, Liz. So from the fostering point of view, yes, you're right. It isn't just them doing it for the money. I mean, obviously, to be able to take on a looked after child, obviously they need the training in order to make sure that they're able to do that to a satisfactory standard. But obviously, it is a mission as well. So some of the videos that we've seen, which have come from the regional adoption agency, but also from the Southeast fostering network, of which Medway is a part, is really amazing to be able to see. And when we have the kind of fostering celebratory events, which, you know, there's one at Bridgewood Manor and there's another one that often takes place down at the Corn Exchange, I'm just blown apart from the dedication of some of our foster carers. I remember handing out an award to a couple that have been foster carers for over 40 years, which is absolutely amazing, that dedication. I'm really pleased that we've been able to embrace and take on board the Mockingbird initiative. So this, I think we've now got 3 Mockingbird networks, and what that does is it provides extra support to our foster carers. So our foster carers have got their own lives to live, and they've got members of their own family as well as the foster children that are living with them. And they're able to look initially to their Mockingbird constellation for additional support if they're going to be going away for a few days, whatever, or they're going to have an operation, whatever, all those sorts of things that can actually happen, so that they're not left on their own, as it were. I know from the visits that I make that there's a very strong bond between the foster carers and the social worker that comes in to safeguard the welfare of the child, but also to be able to have that support from their peers around a structured, getting together. A Mockingbird constellation is, I think, going to be helpful for our foster carers. And then as far as social workers are concerned, I'm really pleased that the feedback that we're getting is that more people like working for Medway, that we've got a stable leadership now, which is important, and that there are opportunities for them to develop. And that includes, as I understand it, being able to come into social work at a lower level. So perhaps there are people out there that have worked in other forms of careers, but they've also brought up families, like particularly mothers that might have had 2 or 3 children themselves. And it's not too late at the age of 50 to be able to, with the support of Medway, come on board and use your lived experience to become supporters to our social workers and eventually get that qualification as well. So we are growing our own as well, both foster carers and also social workers. And I think that's an advantage of us being a unitary authority as well. So I'm really pleased about the impact of corporate parenting that's been celebrated and taken forward by non-children's services managers as well. So sort of place. I mean, like Ruth DeLue is a I always quote her as an amazing corporate parenting lead officer who is outside of the field of children's social work. So all these things are the way that we manage to do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And Keith, you've just put your hand up. We're running out of time, so if you could be speedy, that would be great.
Yeah, it's a very quick question, actually. I mean, it was a good report to read, but my concern, actually, when Liz was talking
Yeah.
about fostering, is those children that have got extremely challenging behaviour. So, what support have you got for the foster carers in that incident? And are they children that are actually not being fostered because of their extreme behaviour? Do we know? Do we know how many there are?
No, but what I'll do is I'll like take that away, and I'll rather than speak off the top of my head, it wasn't something that I was necessarily like prepared for, but I do value the work of the Medway Parents and Carers Forum, of which I know you're an amazing mainstay. And if I can get back to you and write to you on that, then I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Adam. Vice Chair.
I move that we note the report. And thank Adam for coming too.
Is that seconded? Thank you. Seconded by Mark. Thank you and agreed. Thank you for your time, Adam. Before Tracy comes up, can I just welcome our Youth Council and also our new Deaconess, Louise. Thank you for coming this evening as well, and welcome to our committee. Okay, so we're now on item number 6, which is the welcoming our portfolio holder, the wonderful Tracy Coombs, Councillor Coombs for Education. And it's her item. I understand everyone's read her report, so any questions, please? Lovely. Brilliant. Oh, thank you. Right, so we've got Liz, Sharon and Douglas, then George and Mark. If we go for Leah, sorry, not Liz, apology. Of course. So at the moment, I've got Liz, Sharon, Douglas, George, Mark, Stephen, Lou, Demola, Adrian. That's who I've missed. Anyone else? Liz as well. Right, sorry. I apologise. Okay. Anybody else? A lovely long list. Well done, everyone. Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Tracy. Welcome. So Leah, Sharon, then Doug.
Hi. So also to thank you for the report, and I thought it was great. But also, I would say obviously there's been lots of focus nationally on SEND provision and how to best fix the slightly the adversarial system that seems to exist at the moment, where it feels like parents are pitted against all of the services that they need to access. But I'm sort of concerned that given that that system has existed as long as it has, and parents are in a mindset that they need to fight for all the things, I just wanted to sorry, just so that I can be clear, my council laptop is broken, so I'm working off post-it notes and I'm struggling to read my own writing. So just how are we educating parents on what that new system might look like and how they can access it, alleviating the anxiety and ensuring that they know that mainstream schools will be equipped with the facilities and the resources to support their children?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much for your question. Before I answer it, I'd just like to start off by giving my own thanks to the people that I work with, really. So the team at Medway Council, who are incredibly supportive, work incredibly hard. They've had a huge workload this year, and with the reforms that you've just been talking about, Leah, the Children's Welfare and Schools Bill, the SEND inspection, they've got a really, really intense 12 months or so coming up as well. So huge thanks to them. And also absolutely massive thank you to our school colleagues who really work hard every single day, working directly with these children, SEND children, mainstream children. They do a really incredible job, and it's a true partnership and a true working together. So I just wanted to get that on the table before I answer your question. But it does come on to what you were saying. We have had the SEND white paper that was made public last week. And there are a lot of changes in that paper, really a lot of changes, and we're in the very early days. One thing that I have done in the past week is to share the Parent and Carers Forum summary of what those changes are, a really excellent précis of what that means for parents, what the changes are that are coming. Is just a factual document, and I would urge anyone to go onto their Facebook page and to read the information that they've put out there, because it really is a very clear summary of what's coming. Now, I do understand that for parents, any change can be worrying. It can make them anxious, unsure of what's to come. But what this white bill will mean is that children get the support that they need much earlier without the need for an EHCP, without the need for a diagnosis. They will be able to get the help that they need when they're identified in school, needing even just a small amount of support that should be there, right through to if they need a specialist help, there will be experts on hand to work in schools. And those with the most complex needs will still get an EHCP, and they will go to specialist provision. Now, we have got an ongoing consultation for the white paper. I would urge anyone to respond to that consultation. We have already started working on our SEND reforms plan. We had an excellent session this afternoon. We were looking at our priorities, working with partners, not just with ourselves, but our partners from the voluntary sector, from health, from education, so that we can pinpoint where we are in terms of the new reforms that are coming in and what we still need to work on. The white paper should mean that we move away from this adversarial system that we have. It should mean that parents are not having to fight for what they need for their child. It should mean that they are able to get that help much sooner, that it should be identified, that there will be better trained staff in mainstream schools who are able to identify and work with those children and support those children at an earlier stage. And often that will mean that they do not need more intensive support later on, because they get that going into school sooner. We're talking about experts being made available to schools, including speech and language therapists and other therapists who will be there. So although it's a change, and I know that change can mean that there's some anxiety attached to it, but I would urge anyone to look at the summary, to read the white paper, to make their views known through the consultation. And it's, I think, going to be a much improved system, but it's going to be a while before it's fully implemented.
Thank you. Sharon?
Thank you, Chair. I think you've just answered my question, Tracy, but I will second to go on and look at the summary on the Medway Parents Forum, because it's brilliantly diagrammed, and even for someone who's got severe dyslexia, it's quite, you can see it. But I will ask this question and I'll try and rephrase it so you don't have to give the same answer. But we are seeing improvements, and that they are coming, but it is always this persistence within the SEND and the disadvantaged children outcomes. Is there any key things that we're putting in place that, you know, like, I don't know, 2 things that we're really going out there and this is what we're putting in place because we really want to see the outcome?
There are a number of things that we've already done. So the inclusion agenda with schools is really starting to have an impact. Schools are working really well together to make sure that they are able to meet the needs of children that are coming to them. They are much more engaged in saying what they need to help meet the needs of the children that they're getting. We've got quite a number of schools now involved in the PINS pilot. So we had 14, I think I don't want to get the numbers wrong. I think we had, well, I think, did we have 21 and we got 14 more who are now engaged in it? The feedback we're getting from schools on the impact of this programme is really, really positive. They are really pleased with how this is working. We've also got commissioned outreach support for schools so that they are able to kind of tap into the expertise that we have, and they can look at individual children. They can be quite specific about the kind of support that they need. If they feel that they haven't got the capacity in school, we can work with the staff there, with teaching assistants and with teachers to upskill them so that they're able to help to better meet needs there. We've got more resource provision going into mainstream schools. So that means that we've got additional places within mainstream schools, but with that very specialist resources there, with staff who are trained particularly in working with the children that are in place. And we've got a large number of additional places coming on stream this September in both secondary and primary mainstream schools. So we're really is working together with our school colleagues, upskilling them, resourcing them, and making sure that we're meeting the needs of those children.
Thank you. Douglas, then George and Mark.
Thank you, Tracy, for your report. Just one question, really, just to follow through on the previous comments. As elective home education continues to rise, and that in itself creates pressure on those places available, how are we rebuilding parental confidence through inclusive mainstream provisions? Thank you.
Thank you. Elective home education numbers are growing at quite a rate. They are still growing at quite a rate. One of the things that we are going to be having on stream with the white paper actually with the Children's Welfare in Schools Bill is that local authorities will have more statutory responsibility for this, which means that we will have more ability to look at the home education that's being provided to make sure that all children are getting appropriate home education. But also we are looking at building understanding and learning good practice for those schools who have low numbers of children who are removed for home education. It's something that's really concerned me. So we did a pilot study where we spoke to families who had removed their children to home educate to try and find out what the reason was. And the main reason parents were removing their children was because they were either dissatisfied with the school or they had a belief that the school was not going to be able to meet their child's needs. So we need to engage with parents and we need to put resources into schools to make sure that schools are able to meet the needs and that parents can build their confidence in the school's ability to do this. So things like the PINS pilot, the This Is Me pilots that we're putting into school, or SEND strategy focus on mainstream inclusion. So we've gone from only 23% of our children with EHCPs in mainstream school a year ago to 46% now. So schools are much more experienced now with managing the different needs of children. And it's a question of making sure that parents are feeling more confident in the school's ability to do this. And we rely on our school partners to help with this, to engage with parents, to talk to them, to make sure that parents have considered every possible opportunity and aspect of what they could do with their children, what's available, before they make that decision to remove their child. We don't want it to be a reactionary decision based on their fear that the schools won't meet the needs. So again, it's a partnership, it's a systems thing, and we're working hard on this. But also having more specialist teachers in schools, having more upskilling will help those parents, I believe, feel more confident with this.
Thanks, Douglas. Right, we've got George next, then Mark.
Sorry. Thank you. Get there in a minute. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, thank you for your report, and thank you for your observations on the white paper. I mean, I'm more interested. I appreciate, you know, the nature of the reforms and the need to reform the system. And I think, there are lots of positives within it, but as you might imagine, I'm sort of more interested in terms of some of the, I'm not going to call them the pitfalls, but some of the challenges that you foresee on the white paper in terms of Medway Council. So a couple of questions from me. The first one is just regarding sort of what you're anticipating your response is going to be to the white paper through the consultation. Obviously, it's particularly as it pertains to obviously the SEN reform. Obviously, there's a number of questions that are pertain within that. I'm just wondering what, in terms of your thoughts and the administration's thoughts are in terms of your response back to government in terms of that conversation. Because I'd be very interested in terms of some of the challenges that you see within the white paper, or some of the things that you believe the council might need additional resource in order to deliver, for example. My second point is just around ensuring that we've got the correct level of capacity within the organisation to deliver this at a pace. I mean, I've got serious concerns, and I've expressed those concerns through the LGA to people at the department, because I have concerns that we're in the middle of the largest reorganisation of local government in a generation, and at the same time we're bringing forward some of the most ambitious SEND reforms in a generation. So I'd just be interested in terms of your thoughts in terms of how you and the rest of the executive are sort of seeing the management of some of this, noting the obligations and the changes that are going to have to come forward, and any conversations you're intending to have in terms of additional money from the government to support with that. And then just finally, I'm just interested in terms of obviously the interlink with health. There's a very large importance within the white paper. It's a joint white paper between the Department for Education and the Department for Health and Social Care. Just in terms of how you're sort of seeing that piece working with health colleagues and others within the system, the ICB, etc. And if you've had any engagement with other sector partners outside of schools directly on any of this. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much for your question. I mean, of course, the transition that will be required with these reforms is going to take a great deal of planning, and this has already started. So this afternoon, myself, Celia, colleagues from across the partnership, we're working together to do a kind of health assessment of where we are, where our strengths are, which are going to be the key priorities that we need to work on. Now, this plan will be submitted in June, so we will be working at pace with this. And I mean, absolutely certainly, we are already working with health. I jointly chair the Medway Send Partnership board that I co-chair with Paul Lumsden from the ICB. So we are working closely together all the time, meeting very regularly. On that partnership board, we have representatives from the voluntary sector, from health, from social care, from education, from schools, from the council. And so we are already very used to working in partnership with these different partners and all playing our part in it. And we all know what our responsibilities are towards SEND in Medway. That's not a new thing. We will be looking at some different things, but we will be working together as we have been working together. We've been putting these reforms alongside the children's services reforms. So there's a lot of crossover and a lot of overlap there. And that will make sure that we're preventing duplication and that we're being more efficient, and we're ensuring that we have joined up working going forwards. We have also increased our staffing capacity because we know that we're going to need more capacity for these things. So, for example, our new statutory responsibility related to elective home education, we're increasing the size of the team so that we're able to visit more parents, visit more children who've been electively home educated, and we will be making sure that that capacity is there going forward. But it's something that we will be closely monitoring, of course. It's going to be a lot of work for the team, don't get me wrong. They're going to be absolutely working their socks off at this, as will we all. But the reforms, they're closely aligned to the Safety Valve programme, which is just coming to a conclusion. So we've been really successful with that. We've seen that through to completion. We've gotten all the grants because we've met all the targets. So I have confidence in our team that we will manage this. It will not be easy. It will be really hard work. Please, if you see Celia or the team, be nice to them. Get them coffee, make sure they're all right. But I have confidence, and as I say, we're already working closely with these partners. This will not be a new thing for us.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. I've got three questions on different areas. One is about something that finished just after you were here last year, and others to do with more recent stuff. So if I start with the one that's a bit further back, so it's to do with when we at the end, back into 2024, following the huge national shortage of education psychologists, Celia and the team put in a plan to deal with the backlog instead of keep doing the same thing and you just then chasing and not getting anywhere, and put in a really ambitious plan that within a 6-month period would clear the backlog while running a secondary stream to get everyone within the 20-week time frame. Just wondered, now that that finished around about March last year, I just wondered, was the backlog cases all completed within that 6-month time frame? And then with regards to the other stream and the ongoing, did they all meet their legal time frame of 20 weeks? I just wondered if you had them numbers. Next question was to do with the white paper, and I said you mentioned that regards to changes coming in, and one of them is to give everyone an individual support plan. But having spoken to schools, they've been doing something with slightly different name, but does exactly the same thing, called an individual education plan. And I do know with Medway Council and our schools, we've been doing, the schools and Medway Council have been doing early intervention before it became a thing, because falling on from the issues of the getting the EHCPs done because of the backlog, that we were already implementing that beforehand, and this is just coming in. And I found that the bigger concerns is that Adam said it today, Vince said it at budget, that we're spending £1.35 million a day on statutory requirements. And one of the things that the white paper doesn't address is that the statutory requirements of local authorities to meet the needs and the requests for children with special educational needs. We're bringing all these changes in without actually looking at statutory requirements that are on local authorities. Is it just going to still be, yes, we've got new guidance, spending money on improving the service, but that statutory requirement for parents to hold us to account and take us to court when they don't agree with us, if that doesn't change, then this is going to be a load more cost either going on to our schools or onto our residents who pay their council tax and taxpayers. So I just wondered, with your thoughts on should there be look at it more as into the statutory requirements with regards to the changes in the white paper and balancing that, and also just on the one with the EHCPs from that took us past your appearance here last year. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'll start with your first one on our tackling of the legacy of the horrendous backlog of EHP initial assessments. So when we decided we had to do it, there were only 4% of EHCPs being assessed within the timescale. So we knew that couldn't continue. That was completely unacceptable. We sat down, we came up with the plan, we put the investment in to pay agency, educational psychologists to tackle that, and the backlog is cleared. That's gone. We no longer have a backlog. So that was dealt with. We made sure that we had enough investment in there to maintain the assessment of the EHCP requests that came in each month. And at that time, we were averaging 55 a month. So we had enough resource in there to do that, where we would meet them all. That has more than doubled. We are getting in excess of 110 EHCPs in a month. So while we put the resource in to meet the needs that we had identified, we found that demand massively increased. However, we're still above national in the number that we are dealing with within timescale. So we've gone, I mean, national's not high enough. Don't get me wrong, national is not high enough, but we're above national. We still should be doing better than this. but we are above national. So we've gone from 4% up to an above national figure. We've still got work to do. We are beginning to see that demand tail off a bit. I think some of it in part was due to the leaks from the white paper that EHCPs would be going. And so parents decided that they would get in quick and get the requests in now before that happened. So that had a real knock-on effect with us. But yes, the backlog is gone, and we have massively improved on the number of EHCPs that are now assessed in timescale. So we're pleased with that, but not complacent. We've got, we've got more to do. In terms of the second question that you asked, so ISPs are in the white paper, and of course schools have plans for children who are needing a bit of extra help in class. That's always been the case. That was the case when I was a teacher. It's still the case now. IEPs, however, have got no standing in law. That's something that schools choose to do, and they could choose not to do it, but they could choose to do. ISPs will have standing, so parents can have more confidence in them. They can have more confidence in what's written in the ISPs. They have more opportunities to challenge schools if they feel that the ISPs are not being followed, and they'll have more input into them. So that's where a lot of the difference will come. So whereas IEPs are not statutory at all, ISPs will have standing. So there will be a difference there. And in terms of, when you're talking about parents who take local authority to court because they're unhappy with what's in the EHCPs, we are going to be moving away from parents feeling they must have this document in order to get what they need from their child. We are moving away from parents having to fight for what their child needs. We're moving towards a collaborative approach between parents and schools, where they're working together, where the child is getting their needs met at a much earlier stage. And so parents will not, hopefully, be feeling the need that they've got to go into battle for their child. That is a big part of what this white paper is trying to achieve. And sorry, could you just repeat your third question for me? I was writing notes on the other one, and I
Sorry,
neglected to take proper
I went
notes.
through all of that, and my actual third question didn't get asked.
Oh, right.
So
That's why I haven't got any notes.
so glad you come back. All it was to do with, so recently we've announced the secondary school placements, and the very high figure of 96% getting one of the selections. We used to also announce what percentage got their first selection. So I'm just concerned is what was that number?
I've got that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have in children about to start in year 6, going to start in year 7, 80% were offered their first preference. For children about to start in a reception class, 95% were offered their first preference.
Thank you. Damola, then Stephen.
Thanks, Tracy, for the report. So my question actually got asked, but I do have another question. So we're seeing some improvement, which is great, but what are we doing to further close that academic performance gap between Medway and the national level, and also the underperformance for children on EHCPs?
Thank you very much for that question. In terms of the progress that we're seeing for outcomes for children, there's a bit of a mixed picture here. We have got some improvements. We're still below national in far too many areas, but we are seeing the gap narrowing. We've got some better results for SEND pupils in some of our areas. We do work with our Department for Education colleagues on this. Of course, most of our schools now in Medway are academies, which means that the local authority doesn't have a role to play in school improvement, doesn't really have a role to play in holding schools to account for their results. That responsibility lies with the board of the trust and the trustees. We do work, however, with school governors. Of course, they have a role in questioning school leaders and asking them about the results, about what things have been put in place to make improvements, about analysing which particular groups of pupils might have done better or not so well and what's been put in place for those. In terms of support, the Department for Education, so if they work with schools that are showing low attainment overall, they can get extra support through the DFE, through the Universal RISE scheme, which is the regional improvement for standards and excellence. But that's only really for schools who are in really dire straits, really, who have got very low results. So in terms of DFE support, there's not that much of it. So they are very much relying on the trust, on what the school leaders and the trust can do, how those improvement partners can work together. Having said that, we have regular meetings with CEOs of trusts. We have meetings with education partners. So I'm a member of the Medway Education Partnership Group, where we meet regularly. We have representatives from all sectors, so special schools, secondary schools, primary schools, and early years, where we can talk about things, we can bring things. We look at the data dashboard, where we identify trends. We can offer support. It's up to schools whether they take it, but we do offer support to schools, particularly when they maybe have a poor Ofsted result, and that offer is there for them. So within the constraints that we have in the academy system, we do reach out to our school colleagues, and we do work alongside our DFE colleagues to if we've got concerns, we will raise concerns with them, but then it is very much in their hands.
Thank you. And we have Stephen, then Lou, sorry.
Hi, Tracy. So you got a bit of a heads up. So in section 21 of your report, you talk about SEND, including transport. So there's clear progress. But how are we going to ensure that families consistently feel there's an improvement, and their children, of course, on a day-to-day experience, that the SEND system is improving, and they're living that experience?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. I think communication with parents is really, really key here. And we need to communicate, and we need to engage across the whole SEND and education partnership. And of course, Medway Parent Carers Forum is part of that, and they do an excellent job of bringing parents' views to us, but also feeding back to parents what has been discussed at the partnership board, so that they know what our priorities are, whether we're aware of it, what's going to be coming forwards. We also share good practice and learning. There are surveys that are carried out to find out what parents' concerns are, both through Medway Parent and Carers Forum, but also at points of engagement with our team. So in our family hubs, we have the opportunity to talk to parents and find out their views. We have officers who regularly attend events. So, for example, I keep coming back to Medway Parent Carers Forum, but they do so much. They have coffee mornings, they have engagement events. We have officers go in and talk to them. This year with SEND Transport, we made sure that all the meet and greets happened before the start of term. So they all took place this year. We actually, I want to touch wood here, but we had a really smooth start to the year, and that has continued with our SEND Transport. And there's been a huge reduction in complaints from parents. And if parents aren't happy with their children's transport, we know about it. You know, they will let us know. So that's a really strong indicator that parents are overall satisfied with the transport that we're providing. We've also increased our staffing. We've got a dedicated comms officer now as well, who's if you look on social media, there's much more information that's going out there that's really readily available. And I would encourage any parent to please follow the page to pick up on different information. We run workshops and so many different things. There's always more we can be doing in terms of communication. And we do run various consultations and so on. But sometimes the uptake of that isn't as high as we would like it to be. So we're always trying to look at different ways of doing it, whether it be online, face-to-face meetings, doing it at different times of the day, so that if parents can't get along to a daytime session, we're making sure that we run some in the evenings as well in accessible places. But certainly there's always more that we can do. But I think the communication is so important, and it helps parents to kind of relieve some of the anxieties that they may have around their children and their young people, and what the provision is, and making sure that they're being properly looked after.
Thank you. Lou, then Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to start as a parent, and I'm a proud parent of 80% that their child was granted their first choice. So yeah, and my question is, it's not really a question, but what are your personal highlights for the previous year? Yeah, something you would like to mention? Or yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. There's loads that I'm really proud of that we've done in the last year. I mean, I've already mentioned some of the things. So, for example, clearing that EHCP backlog and getting on top as we can of those ongoing assessments, so that parents are not having long waits and children are not having long waits to have their needs assessed. That's been a really key thing. I would say as well that the working relationship that we have got with schools in the partnership has progressed massively, and especially in terms of the systems leadership for inclusion. And this has led to a big drop in exclusions and suspensions in schools. We've gone, I've got the number somewhere in there, but I'm not going to spend my time looking for it. But it has dropped really significantly, the number of exclusions that we have. And in fact, as I understand it, the last time the Fair Access panel was due to meet, it was cancelled because there were no children to find places for. So that's a huge, huge success. And I do really want to pay tribute to Celia in particular, and to officers for working so well with schools in developing the relationships and developing that systems there. I would say as well, the completion of the safety valve is a real success. We've come to the end of that period, and the deficit that we had has been addressed. So that has been great. But also, the increased provision for SEND pupils in mainstream schools. We've gone from only 23% of children with EHCPs being accommodated in mainstream schools. We've doubled that to 46% now, who are in mainstream schools, are having their needs met, are being accommodated in their local nearest mainstream school with their peers. And that's a really positive thing. It's reduced the number of children with SEND who are having to travel longer distances to schools out of area, because we didn't have enough provision for the number of EHCP pupils in our special schools. So that's been a real proud moment that we're able to do that, and that will improve even further. We've got more spaces coming online this September. We have got 2 new special educational needs schools in the pipeline that will be coming online in, I think the first one's 2 years away, and then next one a few years after that, which means not only mainstream school provision, but specialist school provision will be nearer to home for our children. I'm really pleased about that. But also, I'm really excited about what we're going to be working on. So, you know, in education, there's always more you can be doing, and we've had to prioritise. We've had to prioritise making sure that those EHCPs were being assessed, making sure that we had more children in our mainstream schools were being accommodated. But there were things that it's always been my priority, and I'm really glad that we've got to it now. So early years, we're going to be working really hard on improving the early years provision, because I really believe that if you can get children off to the best start way before they reach school, when they're a year old, 2 years old, then you prevent problems happening later on. It means that they reach school and they're ready for school. You're not playing catch up. And so I'm really excited about the action plan that we're putting in place. We commissioned a peer review of our early years last year. We had the action plan back, and now we've done a lot of work on that, and we're ready to get moving with that. But also on elective home education, those numbers have been rising, and it's something that we've wanted to tackle, and we know we will be. And at the other end of early years, we're looking at our post-16 provision. We've got a rising number of young people now who are getting to age 16, and they're out of education, employment or training. And often it's because they might miss out on a GCSE by a few marks, which means they don't get into their sixth form and they don't have a backup plan. So we are going to be looking at how we are going to be able to offer more opportunities, more training, more different experiences for those children, so they don't get to age 16 and then thinking, well, what next? So I'm excited for those things coming too.
Thank you. Adrian, then Liz.
Thank you, Joe, and good evening, Tracy, and thank you for your very comprehensive report. I've got a couple of questions for you, but before that, I've spotted just a little typo in part of your report. In the increase SEND post-16 provision, which we've just been talking about, on page 52, there's a bullet point for construction boot camps with O'Hallahan and Bryan. It should actually be O'Hallahan and O'Brien. But I'd like to bring this up because that's a really good example of added social value, because O'Hallahan and O'Brien were used by the Medway Development Company as the construction managers for Garrison Point and Chatham Waterfront. They also have done a lot of other work in Medway and Chatham Waters. And I think it's really good to see there that young people are going to get the opportunity to see if they can get employment in the construction industry, which will give them well-paid jobs. And there was a really good demand for that. So, although it was just a typo, but I think there's an important little point about, we need to use other social value from our huge procurement that the council has every year. And this is a good example of MDC doing that, but we should do more. My question, my first one follows on from what Douglas was also concerned about, which was the rather large increase in children being home educated. Could you just expand a little bit, Tracy, please, on what we as a council are doing to ensure that those young people are getting an adequate education? My second question is about the Medway test, which is paragraph 20.2 in your report. It states that 45% of Medway children who sat the Medway test achieved a pass, compared with 76% of out-of-area children. That's a big difference. Have we got any understanding of why there's the big difference between our own children and the out-of-area children, please?
Thank you very much, and thank you for pointing that out about O'Halloran and O'Brien. I went out to visit them at the Strood Civic Centre just a few weeks ago to meet some of the apprentices who were on that boot camp, and they were amazing young people. They were only there for 2 weeks, but they were going to get there. I'm not up on my construction terms, but they were going to get the car, which allowed them to work on site. And they were so positive, and the staff members there who were training them were so positive about them as well. It was just a fantastic scheme. And interestingly, earlier this week, I visited Mid-Kent College and was shown around their construction department, their engineering department. Again, was talking to young people who were there who were learning so many different skills, from tiling, painting, decorating, carpentry, bricklaying, all of those things, through to CAD design that was, way beyond me. So, some of the things that are on offer are fantastic. We just need more of those opportunities for sure. But yeah, I agree that it was very good. So coming on to your first question about the increase in children who are being electively home educated and what we're doing. So we are growing our team in Medway so that we are better able to support families who are electively home educating, and also to make sure that the education those children are getting is appropriate and is the right sort of education. We contact and we visit parents of electively home educated children. If we do find that the education they're getting isn't adequate, we can put them back in, but only through schools' attendance orders. So at the moment, it's quite a difficult process. It's not quite so straightforward. we have very few levers actually to intervene because it's parental choice. Parents can choose to electively home educate. They don't have to give us their reasons. And we have very few levers. The Children's Wellbeing Bill will change that. We will have more statutory powers if we feel that the child is not getting an appropriate education, then we have powers then to say no, that you can't continue to do this. We will also have some children will need our permission to be home educated. For example, if a child has an EHCP, the parents will need our permission to withdraw them from school and electively home educate them. And this means that we can be more confident that children are getting the right sort of education, but it's also a safeguarding measure. It also means that we can make sure that those children are safeguarded, that we have got an oversight of what's happening with them. So in order to do this, we, as I say, we're building capacity in the team because we will need more members of staff in this department to make sure that we are doing a good job of making sure that the visits happen, that we have an oversight of what's going on in Medway. We will continue to look at the reasons why parents electively home educate. So we'll continue to review that, we'll continue to talk to parents to try and build up more of a picture. And when we did this previously, as I said before, we were told that a lot of the reason was because parents were maybe dissatisfied with the school or felt the school couldn't meet the needs of their children. So then it's about working with those schools to find out if we've got individual schools where this is happening more often than in other schools, working with those schools to find out why, what we can do to help support them in managing the needs, what we can do to help them with the relationships with the parents. We also already offer a kind of mediation service between a parent and a school if we feel that relationships are breaking down and it's starting to head that way. But we want schools, and the best schools already do this, we want schools to be working with their parents to make sure that parents have every opportunity to look at what there is on offer, to discuss things with the school before they make that decision, because it's such a big decision for parents to make, particularly if they're not making that decision because they really want to be doing it, but they feel that they're kind of left without a choice. So I think a big part of it is going to be that increased capacity in the team, making sure that our officers are going out and talking to parents and to schools. And coming on to your next point on the Medway test. So we have 45% of Medway children who take the test pass it, and we had 76 of out of area children who passed it. So in Medway, tests are taken in the school day, in their own school. It's very, very easy for parents to put their children into the Medway test to have a go, if you like. Out of area, you have to come in on a Saturday, you have to take them to a testing centre. I think parents from out of area are much more likely to be quite discerning about whether or not they put the child in for a test, because of course Kent do their own tests, so many of them will do the Kent test and might do the Medway one as a backup. But I think it's absolutely not that our Medway children are less able. It's absolutely not. It's that you get a much, much wider range of ability of Medway children who sit the test than you do out of area children who sit the test. And of course, when it comes to actually taking up places in our grammar schools, we have yet again got the highest number ever of Medway children taking up a place in the Medway Grammar School this year. So I think this is a third year running that we've increased and increased and increased the number of Medway children who are offered a place. And that's come about because of the changes that we made to the test, because of the changes that we made to the review procedure, so that we've increased the percentage of Medway children who are deemed successful, rather than keeping some open for review. And when Medway children didn't get through the review, they ended up going to out of area children. So I'm really pleased that we have more Medway children actually taking up those places, even though it's a smaller percentage who pass the test.
Thank you. Liz, then Keith.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks, Tracy, for your report. I'll just go on that same as you were just discussing that, because I noticed the numbers, but I kind of thought that was probably the reason as well. I kind of agree with your explanation on that. But I just, when you were sort of saying about the, because what I wanted to ask with those figures was how many of the 45% are going into Medway grammar schools, because I guess the numbers will be increasing because the cohort's increasing year on year. So therefore, you know, the numbers of children, but how many as a percentage are actually getting in? Because I think that's one thing I was hearing about sort of prior to September, that the way we sort of do admissions, that sometimes it's the way that parents are apply for their places and how many schools they put down, because they're very adamant they want their child to go to a particular school. But my concern was, we then, you know, if you only put one school and they've passed the Medway test, we don't then automatically give them their second choice of another grammar school. We just then put them into other secondaries, which seems a bit odd to me that we'd do it that way round. But sort of initially, how many, what's the percentage of are going out of the 45? And so I've got some more questions. Shall I do them one at a time now? Or?
Is that all right?
Yeah,
Thank you. So I'm just trying, I've got my figures in here, if you can just bear with me. Thank you. So I don't have this as a percentage. I do have the actual number. So it was 956 Medway pupils were assessed as grammar. So I'd need to get my calculator out to work out your percentage for you. But that was the actual number. And it is the highest ever number who've been given a place in a grammar school. In terms of the admissions process, we always recommend that parents put down more than one school, because if they only put down one school, the policy is, the assumption is that they're happy with any other school. They don't have an order of preference for anything else. So the admissions process will always go through and allocate schools in order of preference according to their admissions criteria. And if they fill up through that process, and then we go to the ones who put their first choice of school down as across the other side of Medway, and they just didn't get in because they were too far away, if that school is full, then we wouldn't be able to offer it to that child. So we would always, and every year we do this, we always ask parents to don't name just one school, to use your full allocation of schools, to name them in your preference order. And we can only give a second choice of school if they put a second choice on the form. If they don't put a second choice on there, then they will get where there is a space at the end of it, and that might not, if all the grammar schools fill up, that might not necessarily be a grammar school, which is really incredibly unfortunate. I mean, it's very rare for that to happen, that a child who's deemed that they are admissible to a grammar school would not get a place in a grammar school, but it does happen. It does happen, unfortunately. And they do go to the bottom of the choices, and that is the statutory admissions code that sets that out, which we are bound by and we have to follow. So please, parents, if you're watching this, put down more than one choice when you come to choose your child's school.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I did have several in my ward, but like I say, unfortunately it was kind of how they'd have applied, and I appreciate it's difficult because, you know, you often have got your top, and then you're often not going to be happy with getting the second or third choice. But yeah, appreciate your explanation there. When you were talking about moments that you were proud of, did I hear you say that about delaying entry to school, or not? No, okay. I didn't know when you were saying about starting school when you're ready, and about whether.
No, that was about early years. That was about getting help when you need it, so that when you start school, you're school ready.
Okay.
So it means, like, through preschool and through nursery school, you get really good input. You get speech and language help if you need it, and so on. So that when, I'm not talking about delaying starting school, I'm saying when you do start school, you're ready to start school, and you're not, because I'm hearing firsthand from schools that I visit that they have children who arrive in reception classes who are not really ready to start school, who are maybe not able to manage their own personal hygiene sometimes, who you know, have quite complex speech and language needs and so on. So what we're talking about is trying to address those sort of things earlier on so that by the time they start reception class, they are school ready. So no, I'm not talking about delaying start
Oh,
of school.
okay. Because are we seeing many of those applications? Because that was something that sort of changed a few years back, where parents could opt to sort of, rather than starting in the year they're 4, they can start after, you know, the year they've turned 5, can't they?
Parents can opt to do that. And I've got personal experience of this. When I was a head teacher, a parent asked me to do that. So instead of their child, the child became 5 in the summer term before year 1, and you're not statutory school age till the term following your 5th birthday. So you don't, if your birthday is in summer term, you don't have to do a reception year. So parents have the option of saying, I don't want my child to start until they're statutory school age. They can ask the school, but can they start in reception class, you know, a year older effectively? But that's up to this individual school, the individual head teacher to decide whether or not they would do that. And it can cause knock-on problems because they still have to move up to secondary school at the right age. That's a whole nother conversation when they reach, you know, 10, 11 years old with a secondary school. So it's just really important that parents are aware that this could have a longer term impact on their child. But certainly, as far as I'm aware, parents still have that option of asking for their child not to start school until the term following their 5th birthday. So it could be after Christmas, could be after Easter, it could be year 1.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That was just a bonus question. Can I have 2 more?
Oh, we're
One
very
more.
behind.
Okay,
One.
one more. Thank you. Which one? Yeah, okay. Going back to the inclusion rates, which we mentioned before, and Stephen has asked this again as well, and I just wanted to touch on that because you're talking about it as a positive, and I accept it can be a positive, but I kind of, for me, I sort of look at it and think, ooh, sort of slightly more concern about it. I just would want to know that we're keeping a sort of close eye on this, how parents are feeling, how the school's coping, how the children are coping, because it is a massive jump. And it does talk about children with complex then, so we're not sort of, you know, so my concern is that we're sort of doing inclusion for, I don't know about the sake of inclusion, but schools can't be everything to everyone, I guess is my concern, and that we're going to sort of try and make them do that. I mean, just look at, you know, my personal experience of 4 children. I had them at 4 different schools because, you know, they needed to go to 4 different places. And, you know, with my youngest, with his complex needs, there was talk of him going to a mainstream nursery, and that filled me with dread because I knew that they wouldn't be able to cope with him there. So I'm just, I'm just worried that we're sort of ensuring that we're getting the parents' views, that we're not forcing something, because then the alternative is then they have to then change schools a year or 2 down the line, which is really disruptive as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to look at each child's individual needs, and by no means are we suggesting that all children with special educational needs should be in a mainstream school. It has to be appropriate for the child. Those with the most complex needs who need specialist provision, we will be getting them into the right specialist provision. And that is going to be helped in terms of the 2 new special schools that are going to be built in the coming years. So we will have more capacity here in Medway to accommodate those children with the more complex needs. Now, we're watching really closely. We have increased the resource, we've increased the training for schools. We want to support schools in making sure that if they're having children with EHCPs in their schools, that they are able to meet their needs. We absolutely don't want any school or any child to fail. That's absolutely not what we want to do. So things like the PINS pilot, the trauma-informed practice, the graduate support funding, so that schools are able to make their own decisions about how they spend it and what resources they might need in terms of people or in terms of equipment and so on. We are looking at increased capacity for the school rather than necessarily just this individual child. We want schools to have a kind of a deeper understanding, a kind of much more in-depth knowledge of how to work with children with special educational needs. And I think that comes from things like having specialists in schools. So we're talking, I mean, in this white paper, we're talking about speech and language therapists for all schools. We're talking about having experts available for all schools on call. This is going to be funded. Now, you know, it's not going to happen tomorrow. We're talking about, I think, 2030, maybe we're talking about this, looking at the timescale, they're starting to come online. But it's absolutely not a case of we want to just put them into mainstream schools. We want to have them in the right place. And I was at a meeting a couple of weeks ago. So Nishab Khan MP, she had a send round table where she had a number of parents who'd contacted her who had concerns about their children with special educational needs, and she got them together. I was there, Celia was there, there was a senior leader from Riverside Inclusive Trust was there, and a number of professionals were there listening to these parents. And you know, some of those the stories they were telling about how difficult it was to get what they needed. But one that stuck in my mind was there was a parent who found it so difficult to get their child with Down syndrome accepted into a mainstream school. That was her choice, and she found that really difficult to do. So we have to be mindful of what parents want, but we also have to be mindful that some parents, that is what they want for their children. And we need to make sure if that's what they want, that we're able to accommodate that and to do a good job of it and to make sure we're doing the right thing for them. But we will be looking very, very closely at how we do this.
Thank you. Keith, finally.
Thank you, Jo. Just some observations, really, following up on what you said about parents electing to teach their children at home. We have some of our parents have actually told us that the school has turned round to them and said, we can't meet your child's needs. So that's clearly an issue. And if you're a parent of a young person or a child with special needs or disabilities, the cards are stacked against them. So we've found, and I've been at the head of the Medway Parent Carers Forum since it started 17 years ago. So I've seen things come and go and things change. But one thing that doesn't change is that their parents will always be battling the system. So from the moment the child gets into school to the next stage when they go to secondary school, and it still is a bit like falling off a cliff, to be honest. So they get a lot of support in primary school, not so much support in secondary school. We then go on to going out to work. So we haven't got the issue is around the support you mentioned about the course, the bricklaying course. Our youngsters don't get an opportunity to do that, and some of our youngsters might not be academic, but they can do a manual task really well. So we need more support in that respect. Also in the justice system, the percentage is that there's more people with special educational needs in the justice system than there is, a higher percentage, shall we say, than there is of normal people. And then next on is you've got their social skills. And my daughter goes to G Beats. And G Beats is a really good club run by Gillingham Football Club to give them the taste of a proper night out, so they can buy a drink at the bar and everything. They just want to be like everybody else. So we need that extra support in those things. And we still feel after 17 years that sometimes they are missing out. You know, they're talking the talk but not walking the walk. And finally, supported living, because more of our youngsters, as they reach that age, want to be in a place of their own, be it supported, but having their own place. So we want to make sure that carries on, that work. But it was an interesting report. I did read it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and really helpful comments, and I absolutely take on board what you're saying, and I absolutely fully understand that there are parents who wouldn't choose to home educate their children. They're doing it because they feel that they're left without a choice. I do completely appreciate that. Looking at transitions into adulthood is certainly something that we're looking at, and along with the adult social care team, so making sure that we're better at those transitions. Going from school onto the place of work. Mid-Kent College, they are they've increased the number of places that they have for SEND pupils, but still not enough. No, absolutely still not enough. There's still not enough opportunities out there. I'll absolutely take that on board. So thank you for the comments.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, everybody. So over to the Vice Chair.
I move that we thank Tracy for coming and note the report.
Is that seconded? Seconded, lovely, thank you, and agreed. You're both welcome to stay, but I know how hardworking you are, and you know, don't worry if you're going, but thank you, both of you, very much. Okay, now we're on item 7. And welcome Rebecca Smith and Anastasia Nestanova. I hope I've done that okay. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to do a very, very quick summary, and then I'll be handing over to our colleagues from North Kent Mind to give you a presentation. So really, really delighted to bring the Therapeutic Alliance to committee tonight, because we started this back with this committee probably 18 months to 2 years ago, the concept of this Therapeutic Alliance and being able to commission the service specifically for Medway. So this service will be going live on the 1st of April, and it provides fantastic opportunity for our children and young people in Medway to be able to access that support at an earlier stage and that earlier intervention, which we've spoken about so much already tonight. But also it helps to reduce the confusion around how to navigate the mental health services by creating this single front door and making it simpler for families, young people and professionals to be able to refer into services. So I'm going to hand it over to our colleagues now to talk us a bit more about this service.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having us here. We're really excited about this change. And I'm Rebecca Smith, Director of Children and Young Person Services at North Kent Mind.
And Anastasia actually sends her apologies. So I'm Amy Oliver. I'm the Head of Development at North Kent Mind.
Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that the presentation is slightly different, and we've made a few updates, but I'll talk you through those, and any questions, obviously, we're happy to answer. So just as an overview of the new service, so as mentioned, there'll be one referral and advice point. So we're really trying to make it easier for families, young people, children and professionals to access the support they need at the right time. It's for children that are aged 5 to 18 and up to 25 for those who have special education needs or disabilities or care leavers. We are one alliance, so North Kent Mind is the lead provider, and we're working with specialist partners to have different pathways within the service that will meet various needs that we know children and young people have in Medway. We sit within the Getting Advice and Getting Help groupings of iThrive, and what that essentially means is that it's early intervention support and prevention, as well as short-term goals-focused support. We are also part of the wider mental health collaborative framework. So what that is specialist partners and our colleagues that are working with children and young people in their mental health areas to come together and actually look at what's going well, how can we work better together, how do we share information better, and really come up with a solid plan moving forward. So why this is different to what we currently have is that really what we do currently is work in silos. So quite often our funding is kind of short term, and we don't really work in partnership that well, but this actually brings us together. So what it means is that we have the opportunity to work on one system where we have access to that child or young person's information. We can see what they've accessed, what their goals are, what their preferences are, and really make sure that we're championing the voice of the child across various needs and pathways. We have one referral route, so that's making sure that families are clear. They don't have to find the answer themselves. They come through that one front door to us, and we can help them navigate the system, look at the pathways, and make sure they're getting the support that they need. We have shared accountability and information sharing. So that one system means that we can access that child or young person's journey, and they can be re-referred into the project and into the system as they need to. So it keeps it consistent and makes sure that everything is there for us when they need it. And there's no wrong door. So sometimes we're not the right service, and that's okay, but what we won't do is close that child or young person down and say, go and find the support yourself. We're working with specialist mental health partners and wider statutory services to really make sure that if we're not the right support, we help them navigate and find the support that really is. So this is just a short video to summarise the journey that a child or young person would go on. So we recognise that not all referrals are routine. We know that actually some children and young people will need enhanced access. So we do have priority groups that are embedded into our service, and it's not that they have their own particular pathways, but we just recognise that they might need additional support to access the service, the pathways that we have within. So that includes care experienced young people, including unaccompanied asylum seeking children, care leavers, and children and young people at risk of offending. And we also know that there are other groups that have increased vulnerabilities. So there is support embedded within for children and young people who have SEND or neurodivergence, and we make sure that there are reasonable adjustments and we're listening to their voice throughout so they can access the pathways that we have, and that we have got a dedicated offer for LGBTQIA+ young people. So an example of where we've listened to what young people need is our young adult support offer. So care leavers had actually told us that they didn't really understand maybe the services that were in Medway, they didn't know where to look. So part of our service is the offer that we have a dedicated care coordinator who can work with that young person from triage point onwards throughout their journey within the service, and they become a real relational support for that young person. So we have also connected with Young Lives Foundation, who offer care leaver support, and our statutory colleagues who offer personal advisors, and looked at maybe where the gaps were and what young people were telling them they were still confused about, to embed this offer to really enhance that local offer for care leavers. Co-production rings through every part of our service design and will continue through service delivery. So we have made sure that we're consulting with young people who are currently in our services about what's going well and maybe what they would like to see in the new service. We launched a logo competition to help start that conversation around what the new service is. We've had some really, really lovely designs that will come through, and they'll be showcased on our website to have a public vote, and then people will be able to choose the one, which will be launched on the 1st of April when we launch. We have our service videos, we have a younger version that is co-produced with children, and through our co-production we would actually like a voiceover to be a child moving forward. We have a lived experience lead role that's dedicated within the service, so they will be able to go out and create engagement opportunities with groups that are seldom heard, or people that we've realised that their engagement maybe drops off during the service, to really understand what's working for them and what isn't. We have advisory boards that are launching, so parents and carers can get involved by being part of that group or part of a Teams channel to give their experience and their feedback and know about updates, as well as a children and young persons advisory panel as well. So we're working really closely with Oasis, who's our LGBTQIA+ partner, to create an advisory group within that cohort of young people to really get their thoughts and feedback. And there's ongoing feedback and consultation built in. So our standard feedback forms at end of session, we'll use end of service questionnaires. We'll also be looking at informal feedback opportunities and a bit like a secret shopper opportunity as well, where we can call people up and understand wherever they are in their journey, what's going well for them and maybe what feedback that we need. Oh. There we go. And in terms of our governance and continuous improvement, so we have shared KPIs across the Alliance. So we, as the lead, have oversight of all the KPIs that we have our subcontractors. We're really aware of what that looks like month to month, as well as across the year, so we can make sure that we're on track to where we need to be. We have that one system for oversight and data visibility. So we're really trying to bring all the partners together, so we don't have to get the system to talk to each other, which is what we've had previously. We have our regular commissioner review, so we work really closely with Medway Council commissioners, and we're really flexible as an organisation and within our partners as well. So if something's not going the way we wanted it to be, or there needs to be a change, we're really open to what that looks like. We have a clear escalation and risk framework that is for us as a lead for that clinical oversight, as well as we understand the day-to-day operational oversight that partners have. And it's that ongoing learning and development with lived experience engagement. So at every point of the service, we look at how it's going for those people. What do they need us to embed moving forward? So just to really bring it all together, it's a new service. It's really, really exciting. We know that that doesn't mean it won't come with the issues potentially, but actually there's a lot of really passionate people behind it being launched. We have stronger enhanced pathways, so we're really making sure that we're listening to groups that potentially might struggle with engagement and need that support. We're strengthening the local offer, so we're looking at what is already out there and how we can enhance that as opposed to duplicate it. We have that built-in accountability, so we have oversight of all the KPIs, we know what referrals are coming in, what pathways they're being assigned to, And we are designed to evolve. So we are not just stuck in what the service is now. We hope that in a year's time, there's a big transformation again that really listens to what the experience is and what the emerging needs are. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation and the visuals. That's great. So we're going to go for questions now, if that's okay. Any member? Sharon.
Looking at it, it looks really good. I know that lots of children, when they're transitioning between teens and adulthood in the care system or are neurodiverse, have problems that spiral very quickly if they just feel that they don't know who they are, and whether that is they're adopted or in the foster in care, or as I say, I've got SEN or LGBT. So this, I'm thinking that this is what it's going to do, is be a safety net for the first point of call, so that they can actually, because it doesn't have to be a mental health problem at the beginning. It's just about them wanting to ask questions and feeling that they're I don't know, I know my own adopted children have said it to me, I just want to know who I am, where I come from, and sometimes they can't get them answers and they just need someone to talk through it. So I think it's brilliant. My only concern, I suppose, is listening to young people, is that it's 18 to 25. I get that and I understand why that is. But we're not just going to drop people off, even if they're having to wait for the next service to have we're not just going to say, sorry, it's your 18th birthday because or your 25th, because lots of that is one of the concerns that I've had it in my ward surgery. You know, I'm coming up to 25. What's going to happen to me now? And so I just feel that it's a brilliant safety net, and I think we could see a really good knock on, that we don't have a mental health crisis. I just want to be reassured that there is that follow up and there's not just a cut off if the other online services aren't ready to take them, if that makes sense.
Thank you. You're absolutely right that the first part of what you said is about us changing the narrative. So it's not waiting for it to be a crisis point to actually reach out for support. We're saying, get in touch with us early, make a referral if you're curious. Let us help you through our drop-in groups or our psychoeducation to start that conversation about mental health before it comes to the point that you might need a targeted intervention. And with transitions, you're absolutely right. There is a lot of drop-off and people suddenly just are left without nothing. So we start with the end in mind. At every intervention that we do, we talk about what the end will look like. What goals would you like to achieve then? Who's your next step in your support, especially when we get to those ages around 16, 18 and 25, looking at who we can do a warm handover to and who we can really involve in that conversation with that data sharing agreement to make sure that they're not just left with nothing. There are obviously age boundaries within our service, but we're really conscious at what points young people do feel like they're left without nothing, and we build that into our care plans.
Thank you.
Isha first, then Adrian, because young people matter here.
Hi. So I was just wondering, how do you intend to promote this alliance to young people? And also, if you're unable to support a young person, what is put in place for them until a new support system is found?
Thank you. So in terms of promotion, when we launch on April the 1st, we'll be doing a roadshow. So our service lead will be going out and speaking to local schools, speaking to our council colleagues, and really trying to get in front of young people that might need our service. And we'll have various online webinars they can access online. And we'll listen to whether that's landed well as well. So we'll make sure that we're talking to youth councils and say, did you hear about us? What was that like for you? And in terms of if we're not the right service, we have really good connections now, and we're still building on them with other services that might pick up those young people. But we make sure that we've got something called a waiting well offer. So if somebody's waiting for support, or they're sort of in a transition period where maybe we're not the right service, or they've come to an end with us, they've got lots of access to drop-in groups. They can give us a call on the consultation line if they want to have a chat about something, or their parent or carer does. We've got lots of online resources they can access as well. But also it's a self-referral. So if they're waiting, they don't feel like they've been picked up well, they can come back into the service at any point. So we're just making sure that we're a really open service, that at any point of somebody's journey, they can reach out to us, and we can either give them a drop-in group, or we can offer psychoeducation, or put them back into a pathway that aligns with what their needs are.
Thank you. Adrian.
Thank you, Joe. And mental health support for young people is a really vital service. What concerns me, this is a service that we don't seem to get any continuity here. Maybe North Kent Mind must be the third or fourth provider since I've been a member of this council. I find that rather disconcerting. At paragraph 2.4 in the report, there are 10 frameworks and strategies that will need to be worked to. And at 3.9, there's a list of 6 organisations who will be providing services alongside North Kent Mind. How can you assure me that everybody's going to be singing from the same hymn sheet, please?
So, you ready for me? Sorry, I wasn't sure if there was another question, Councillor Galvin. Is that okay?
Well,
there might be.
I'd just like an answer.
So
this is a very important service, and we've got to get it right. And
absolutely.
It seems to me that there's a lot expected, and I can't see how it's all going to be pulled together.
Absolutely. So I'll take the first question, and I'll address part of the second question, but I think actually Rebecca's in the best position to be able to speak about that. So in terms of the continuity, we need to distinguish this service from the specialist CAM services. So specialist CAM services have been delivered by North East London Foundation Trust now since 2018. So that's a fairly long period that it's been delivered by that one provider. Before that, it was delivered for a very long time by the Sussex Partnership Trust. This service is not that specialist CAM service. This is an earlier intervention service that we've been trying to build up over the last 2 or 3 years, recognizing that not every child needs to access that specialist CAM service, but very much, as Councillor Jackson was saying, and others have said, it's about how do I engage before my needs get to that very specialist level. And importantly, freeing up those specialist services to deal with children and young people who have a diagnosable mental health condition and need that really specialist intervention. So over the last couple of years, we've been slowly building that low to moderate support. So we've had the SIT service, the short intervention therapy service. We've had a low mood and anxiety service. And then we've had COOTH, which is the online service. And we've had some bereavement support, some LGBT, and it's all been commissioned across a number of organizations. So what we've been doing is developing the support, understanding children's needs and trying to address those gaps. But what we had created then was a slightly confusing service mixture for families to be able to, professionals and families and young people to navigate. What we've done by commissioning this therapeutic alliance now is try and bring all of that into one space. So the confusing bit about who needs to see who is behind the front door. For you, for me, if I am saying I'm feeling really anxious and I need some support, all I have to do is knock on the door and they'll work out where I need to go and who needs to see me behind the scenes in terms of understanding the subcontractors. So what we commissioned was a lead provider model. So North Kent Mind is the lead provider and they are subcontracting elements of the contract to those various different providers that are listed in the document. What that means is our commissioning relationship is with North Kent Mind. And in all honesty, from our perspective, North Kent Mind is responsible for ensuring that all of those KPIs are met. It's for them to manage that with their subcontractors. And if that's not working, that's for them to resolve across that lead provider arrangement. But I'll let Rebecca talk a little bit more about the Alliance and how they've set that up.
Thank you. And thank you for your concern, because I agree it's a really, really important service and we need to get it right. So we have a standard operating procedures set out that everybody will agree to. So that's in draft form now, but is well on its way to being that assurance framework that everybody aligns to and make sure that we're all really clear on what our delivery is. We have operational handbooks for each provider to look at, so we know exactly what they're delivering and what the expectations are, including timelines for when they respond to a referral, the timelines between assessment and referral, when they engage with intervention. So we're really clear on how it's going and what the improvement needs to be. So we make sure that we're having regular meetings with subcontractors. Initially, they'll be monthly, they'll go to quarterly, but if there's any concerns that we have at any point, we have a really open conversation with them about what needs to change and how we change it, and make sure that we're bringing in commissioners and we're bringing in various partners to make that happen.
Thank you. Douglas.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. And as somebody that's been working with young people for over 20 years, I must say this is a welcome and refreshing intervention. But I do share the concerns in terms of the cohesion across the wider piece, which is not of your making, but it's something, the landscape, you have to navigate that landscape. As we try to transition from a sickness-based model of care, not just in mental health, but in general health, to one that promotes well-being, preventative interventions, all those types of things, there's no question for me that the data that you hold is gold, literally, because as you're preventing or removing some of the pressures on CAM services, being able to articulate those interventions and measure people's services' ability to provide support is where we've been lacking. This is why mental health, sadly, is a Cinderella service, because we struggle to evidence the good work that we do. So my question to you is, how are you ensuring that the data across all these services is uniformed so that you can hold people to account in real time? An example of that would be like a dashboard that you can see how your subcontractor is actually working. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a comment about the wider service. You're absolutely right that we need to make sure that we're aligning with wider partners. And that's part of the mental health collaborative framework, is that we are now part of those conversations to really bring together everybody who's involved in that child or young person's mental health needs and what role we play in that, and being really open with each other about this might sit with you and this sits with us, and how do we joint manage that risk with that young person. In terms of how we measure the outcome, we've got agreed sets of routine outcome measures. So everybody will have a goal-based outcome. So part of our triage function is to really identify in that child's voice, what do you want to be different? And they can have 1, 2, 3 goals, and we look at where they are now and where they are during their intervention and where they are at the end. And it's a really easy way for us to track the impact in their voice about what's happening, as well as other outcomes such as anxiety scales or things about mood that we can then track as well. But we're also really aware that engagement is also an outcome. So we will have dashboards across all providers as well as the whole service, and look at things like self-reported scales, but also their individual feedback, and if they actually showed up to the sessions, and if they're not, what are we doing with that, and how are we responding to that data? And is it that there's an issue with the service, or is it there's an issue with access, or maybe it's not the right time or the right intervention? So we'll be able to, in our one system, pull that all together and make some really meaningful outcomes of what is actually going on.
Thank you.
Lovely. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. So I go over to the Vice Chair.
Thank you. So I move that the committee notes that North Kent Mind have been successfully awarded the contract for the Medway Therapeutic Alliance service, and notes the mobilisation strategy for the launch of the Medway Therapeutic Alliance on the 1st of April 2026.
Brilliant. And is that seconded? And agreed? Thank you. Thank you for coming. Lovely to meet you. Okay, we now move on the agenda, and we are looking at the One Medway Council Performance Plan and the strategic summary.
Thank you, Chair. As usual, I would like to take specific questions. I'll preempt that by saying there are some targets that remain significantly below target. I acknowledge that. However, there are some where the general long-term direction is improving, particularly when it comes to children's social care. I think that the reforms, the children's services reforms, will help move those in a good direction. But Chair, we'll take specific questions, please.
Okay, questions, please. Lovely. Mark, then Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. Just really one question. On the report, you've got 5 out of 19 with downward long trend. So that's over a quarter of the measures. I just wonder what is. I know there is some that are just an annual thing, so it's really, really hard to tell. But what is being done to try and remove that downward long trend on them items? Thank you.
Yeah. Which page? Sorry, it's hard to hear the question, so Celia helped me. So in respect of Leanne's shared where we're at in respect of moving the progress on in children's. In respect of the downward trend on placements, we're really working on our sufficiency. As we know, we're recruiting more foster carers locally, which will support our children staying closer to home. And obviously James is reviewing our current sufficiency strategy. We've now got 5 young people at Eden, so we've brought another young person closer to home, and the work on Alt-Even will support us with some of that as well. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
There's another one.
Adrian.
I well understand that, you know, a lot of these areas, it's going to be difficult and long term to, you know, get the KPIs to where we would want them. But what worries me, the last...
Adrian, could you just move the microphone a bit closer? Sorry, I'm having trouble
thank you,
hearing
Jo.
you. Perfect.
I'll start again. What concerns me is that whilst just I could accept that it's not easy to change these things quickly, but I went back, I looked at the previous quarter and the previous quarter before that, and there wasn't much difference in these results. It was still a sea of red and downward trends. Both, you know, I'm talking particularly about the children's services, both under the last administration and this administration, we have literally put tens of millions extra into the service, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Yes, we've got better on the Ofsted side. and that is wonderful to see. But when are we going to get the turnaround in some of these things? You know, the red's turning to amber and the amber turning to green.
I think when we've been here before talking about our plan, Leanne shared around the ambitiousness of our targets. And I think if I've looked on the downward trends now, and they're all ones that we're continuing to push, we're focusing on as a management team. For Councillor Joy, we talked here around the downward trend in our Section 47s and our child protection conversions. Now, what we know is that Medway is higher than our South East region and stat neighbours in respect of that area. We're drilling down into that work. We're understanding the decisions that are made to support improvements of those targets. And if we look at the final one in respect of early help and the partnership leads, we've worked with the partnership across Medway to understand how they're reporting, and that's not an easy target for us to report on. And I think that we're going to review that measure in the plan going forward, because we've tried different mechanisms to try and capture the early help that's provided by our partners, and we're not using one system, so it's really hard. We worked with partners to use our system to record the early help that they were providing. We didn't see the growth in that in the numbers that we'd wanted to. So they are ambitious targets, but please be assured that myself and the management team are focusing on achieving them. But as Leanne has shared, there are ambitious, and they're 27 to 28 targets. So we're on our way there, and you know, we are working on them.
I've got a couple of questions, if I may. Page 82, early help, performance and actions. With the shift in demand, are we monitoring if we've got any reduction in the statutory intervention? Is question one. Then question two, if it's okay, please, if you could indulge me. Risk assurance. So no changes to the strategic risk summary, and this is page 71 to 73. But what pressures should we be looking at in our quarterly cycle reports? So here I'm asking about the risk summary, and Kelly's already said our targets are ambitious, but what are we doing about managing those? Thank you.
In respect of your first question around are we seeing the shift of that statutory work moving down into early help? We are, if you look on there in respect of the families that are open to family solutions, that number is increasing, but it's not where we want it to be. So we need to focus on our families that are working as child in need. In the new world, when we're thinking around family help in children's reforms, we'll see that numbers changing, and we will see the higher number of our interventions at that earlier stage for our families. And that's the work that we're doing with partners that Celia's led on around Family First. So we will see that move down. Our child protection figures are higher than what we want them to be. We're working with those families to support them moving down.
Brilliant, thank you. And I mean, this is a rude question, but we have got ambitious targets. There's some strategic and quarterly reporting cycles where they're a bit stuck. Are you convinced we have got the capacity to be going in the right direction?
Absolutely. We've set ourselves those targets and we are working to achieve them. As Councillor Golvin said, we've put additional resource into establishment into children's services, and we're working on them. So yes, I would say.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, sorry, Leah.
Please, I just want to, actually I find it. So I just wanted to ask around some of the direction of travel ones around the safeguarding inquiries and the fact that they are sort of still quite high above averages, and how confident we are that the demand reduction plans are working.
So are you talking about the section 47s. So 1.11. I think it's one. Oh, sorry, we've got your post-its. So there's work going on across the partnership. So when there are concerns raised around safeguarding and significant risk of harm, we hold a strategy meeting with our partners. We're supporting our Medway Safeguarding Children partnership to take forward some training in respect of people's responsibilities and practitioners across the partnership's responsibilities at those strategy discussions. So it's ensuring that at that risk management meeting, which is effectively what it is that we're making the right decisions. What this data's telling me is that at that strategy discussion, we're moving things through to a section 47, which is a further child protection investigation. Then what's happening from them is then they're not progressing to child protection. Otherwise, we'd see quite a significant spike in our child protection numbers. So it's around ensuring that at that initial meeting, we're making the right multi-agency decision that actually we can manage this as a partnership without stepping it up into that Section 47 inquiry. Is that okay? And I'm happy to share more information, and I'll be doing my data sessions moving forward, and we can explore that further.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Vice Chair, thank you.
So I move that we note the Q3 25-26 progress of the performance indicators used to monitor progress of the Council's priorities as set out in Appendix 1 to the report, and that we note the strategic risk summary as set out in Appendix 2 to the report.
And is that seconded? Thanks, Mark. It's seconded and agreed. Thank you. Now, because we're slightly behind schedule and it makes common sense, could we deal with item 8 and 9 together, please? Thank you. Over to finance.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it makes sense to put these together. So you've got the capital monitoring round 3 and revenue monitoring round 3. Both of those reports have been through Cabinet on the 10th of February. Including both the reports is a lot of information surrounding the position of revenue and capital. So happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thanks, Mark. And Adrian next.
Thank you, Chair. My question is just with regards to revenue. So with the children's service budget, we're current forecast for round 3, looking at an overspend of 4.6 million. No, sorry, 2.75 million. And then also then looking forward to next year's budget, we're actually looking at a reduction in the budget for children's services by 4.6 million on next year. I'm just a little bit concerned with the current overspend, and most of that is on. Sorry, didn't write it actually down. 2 secs. Children's client support package taking 2.3 million. Are we convinced on that one that we're going to get on top of that, and that the savings from this year with regards to the overspend and what we're budgeting next year will be achieved? And the next one's to do with the education, to do SEND and inclusion. I'm assuming that the SEND and inclusion council services includes the EP part of the budget, which we're currently forecast to overspend by 1.5 million, but within which will take us up to 5.3 million. And with what the portfolio holder said earlier, the huge increase in demand in the HCPs, potentially preempting the white paper. Next year we're only budgeting 4.5 million on that. With the high demand, how convinced are we that we will stay within that budget? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Joy. So Keith asked a question earlier around some of our young people where they're with foster carers and there's challenges, and that's what our placement support budget helps us with, to support those children remaining in those placements so they're not moving into another foster home. So there has been an increase in spend, but what that's done is brought our spend down on placements. Now, what I've done with the team is we've been looking at all those additional packages and we've been reducing them where we can and ensuring that they're appropriate. I've been working with Mariah quite diligently, and in Q4 we're really pushing down our overspend, and I think well, I'm sure that we're going to be seeing a difference in respect of our 2.7 and what we come out with as our final outturn in respect of our overspend. So I'm confident that that figure will come down. And I'm also confident that we are providing the right support for the children that are in placement and getting those placement support packages, because that's also for children that are at home with their carers, whether that's in a kinship arrangement or with their parents. So we are providing that additional support to stop some children coming into care as well. Mariah, do you want to do the 4.5?
So yes, we are fairly confident that we're going to be accurate. I work together with Kelly and the services to produce those forecasts. We try and map them to an individual child level where they currently are, where we expect them to be next year, and build those forecasts up to where we expected them to be. So not wanting to blow my own trumpet too much, but based on this year, we set our budget based on a set of assumptions, and we are fairly close to those assumptions. So staffing, for example, we built our budget assuming 23% on agency staff, and we're at about 24. In terms of new placements for children coming into care, we built our budget for 50 this year, and when we did this at December, we're at 37, projected to be 49 or 51 at the end of the year. So we are close to those assumptions, but unfortunately small differences can lead to higher overspends in children's.
And if I just come in on the SEND stuff, so absolutely that overspend is to do with agency staff for the HCPs. We have included a cost for that in next year's, but the expectation is, because we've got it in there, that we can recruit permanent staff, notwithstanding any changes that we'll need to make in terms of the reforms coming. And obviously we're seeing quite significant savings in our transport budget as well, which comes out of that.
Adrian.
Thank you, Joe. I've got one question on the capital programme and two on the revenue budget. On the capital programme, it's great to see mention of the new primary school that's going to be at East Hill. It's good to see that in the programme, because I'm told that the first residents will be moving into East Hill at the end of this month. So there will be the demand there. I'm just a little bit curious of the wording of it. If you look on page 118, it says the new primary school at East Hill, and it will have a resource provision with places for 20 pupils. Does that mean that the form entry is of 20 pupils? I'm a little bit confused of what that actually means.
So the resource provision is the additional provision for SEN children. So 20 pupils will be across all of the years in addition to their admissions number. So that's not the number coming in, that's an additional 20 across all years of the primary school. So not all in one year for SEND.
Although that's good to build that in from the word go. No,
Yes.
No, I'm very happy with that. Right, so as far as the revenue budget is concerned, so for you, Andy, what are the implications of the transfer of the earmark reserves to the general fund at paragraph 1.5? We have earmark reserves for that purpose. They're earmarked. So some of them I can see it probably isn't necessary, but for some of those, it's always good to have the reserve in case that particular thing happens. So I'd like to know the implications of that, please. And also, what is the reason for the round 3 variance of nearly £5 million for interest and financing?
Yes, so we carry within finance. We carried out quite an extensive review of all of our earmark reserves, because what we were looking at is patterns where we'd set aside money, and at that point in time we felt we would need it. But as time's gone along, we've realised those situations and events have changed, and we no longer need them. And actually, it benefited us to use them now, because we don't need them. Obviously, we do have reserves. We have plenty of other earmarked reserves that have remained earmarked because they're needed. So that hopefully that will deal with that point.
Thanks, Andy.
On the interest and finance, I think Phil Watts has made this clear a number of times. We set the budget for interest and financing, and I know that doesn't strictly come within the remit of this committee directly, but I'm happy to answer it briefly. So we set the budget based on assumptions of borrowing requirements, investments, but within those borrowing requirements, the likely interest rates that we would we would sort of have to borrow under. Now, we made those assumptions based on our Treasury advisors at the time, and it was felt that interest rates would fall quicker than that has actually happened. Now, obviously, that's just assumptions, and where the amount of borrowing that we have, that can make a fair chunk of difference. And so basically that's been the reason why, because of the amount of borrowing we've got, and the interest rates haven't fallen as much as we had assumed. What I will say is we have built in to the 26-7 budget that increase to build that back in, and interest rates are starting to fall. So we're confident that we have seen the highest rates. They will come down, and we're confident that the interest and financing budget will be sufficient this year.
Okay, but I think you're being a bit optimistic about the interest rates now. Circumstances have changed for no fault of anybody in this country, but there may be financial implications yet to come, I think. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a bit of a similar question to yours, Adrian, really. Page 21, 121 to 120 to 121, the basic SEN. And obviously the SEN scheme shows larger future spend, and you've mentioned that, and I imagine it's a bit like Victory Academy, where the children grow with the school, and that's brilliant for inclusion. And Andy, you've looked at the forecast, but we don't have a crystal ball, and we're in a bit of a crazy world at the moment. But as far as you're concerned, and the figures that you presented here, am I right in thinking that they reflect the current forecast as you were given, and also the demand for growth and construction and inflation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of those things. But the service brings together the school placement strategy every year, and within that it includes elements for additional places which require capital investment. So that's all built in, and obviously within any scheme there's an element of, obviously there's crystal ball gazing, but it's on the most accurate data at the time. And throughout the year we do find some schemes will have a pressure because of those elements, and other schemes we find that we can bring in below budget. And I think it's just dealing with individual schemes and the complexities of those schemes as we go along. Does that answer?
It does. Thank you, Andy. And I've just got one more question, if you don't mind indulging me. Page 127, section 5.1, and it's the Children's Services table on page 128. So we're looking at SEN children here, and impacts on services and proposed mitigations. Again, we don't have a crystal ball, but are you really happy that we are on the money here? if you like.
Yes. Oh, go on, did you want to? Well, no, I was just going to say yes, as much as we can be in terms of delivery and process of what we've got now, notwithstanding all of the reforms that are coming through, and that we are going to be looking at how we redevelop services, how we develop that reform plan. But also, you will have noticed that with all of these reforms, there's been lots of grants and pockets of money announced to fund them, which we'll need to bid for. And when we get more information about what that means for us in Medway, we'll have to counter that in as well. But it's the best planning that we've got at the moment, and we will keep updated as soon as we get the information.
Thank you, Celia. And Mariah, so I don't leave you out, my lovely. Page 131, section 9.2 to 9.5. So this is about sustainability, and given the reliance on capital receipts, a bit what Celia alluded to, exceptional funding, reserve transfers, the long-term planning position, again, will fluctuate, and obviously we've got the white paper and lots of additional pockets of funding. Councillor Price mentioned, you know, the special guardianship report and the kinship stuff. When we factor those in, do you feel we are still in that equilibrium place?
We're updating these forecasts on a very, very regular basis. I'm in constant contact with the services and the team, updating these forecasts, so they're kind of almost live, but not 100% live. They're about 99% live, tracking data, so we can build in these forecasts. And as James and the services will tell you, they don't put forward a bid without going through a finance representative, so that we can cost these structures and put them forward. So I'm as confident as we can be, but there will always be peaks and troughs that we try to monitor. But across children's and education, we're not doing too badly, despite the overspends, which I don't know if Leanne wanted to come in.
Thanks, Chair. The officers here, in terms of finance with children's education, etc., are constantly recognising, predicting and mitigating. That's what we're doing constantly. So we're as sure as we can be, Chair.
Thank you. And Mariah and Andy and also David, I'd like to thank you for what you do for children, because you're always able to answer our questions. I'm not a financial expert, but you really do present that I can understand. So I really appreciate that. So thank you. Vice Chair. Oh, sorry, Sharon.
Just a quick one, just for Kelly, for clarification as well. And my computer's not, I'm logged out, so I can't. But when we was talking about support packages for kinship and for keeping children at home, that is a long-term saving, isn't it? Because we're keeping children at home, and the forecast, it's a saving, because if they went into care, it would have ongoing costs that spiral. So although it's a large amount of money at the moment, the long term will be savings.
Absolutely, you've answered your own question. And it's better for children to remain with their families.
No, well done there, and thank you, Kelly, as well. So we're Vice Chair. Sorry, I digress.
So I move that we note the recommendations in both the capital budget monitoring and capital revenue monitoring reports.
Lovely. And is that seconded? Oh, sorry. Yes, seconded. Yep. George, and agreed. Agreed. Thank you. So we're on to number 9, which is the work programme. Now, oh, sorry, we need to do the revenue as well. Whoops. Oh, yeah, she did, but she's so dynamic. She can do 2 things at once, my Vice Chair. Multitasks, you know, us super women. So Before we do the work programme, and Celia, you might want to kill me for this, but I read the Wayfield Ofsted report and I was troubled and concerned, really. So I wondered, Stephanie, if perhaps we can put in the work programme, I know there's going to be a new trust, and I wondered, and I'll be guided by you, Celia, on this, whether we invite them or we have a focus group. I know they'll be involved with the DFE, and I know that they'll be subject to RISE, but it seems like there needs to be a bit of a belt and braces job done there, really. And we've got a new academy coming in, but whether they come to us, but I really think for those children and families, I really want to know about how they're going to make these improvements and how they are going to work in partnership. When I've seen the fantastic resources there, the Family Hub, to identify the early intervention with these vulnerable families, but also build relationships with parents and carers and do timely interventions with the whole community, really, to challenge them to succeed, because the only way is up. You know, I've never read something so grim in about 5 years.
Wayfield Trust are in at the moment. I didn't know they were going to get mentioned. I sit on the finance committee of the trust, and I think if we're discussing Wayfield, I shouldn't really be here because their current trust is somewhere I've got an involvement with.
Thank you for
Sorry.
that. Are you okay to go in the little room at the back? Sorry, Mark. Whoops.
No, it's fine. And to be honest, there's not really a lot of discussion that we can have. Wayfield are an academy. They belong to an academy trust, and the DFE are working with them. We are absolutely offering all our support, and we share all of your sentiment around the challenges that they face. We are working with them very closely. Our teams are working with them. What I would suggest is that with their approval, because that we come up with a briefing paper once the plan of action is happened, because we've got no guarantees about the plan of action. That is still determined by the DFE, by the regional director, not by us. But once there is an agreed plan of action with their approval, we write a briefing paper for this group to go round to members. But I don't think we can have it at a meeting to be discussed.
No, and we shouldn't really be, because if we're looking at one individual school, then we'd have to look at others, and we shouldn't really be singling out specific individual schools.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I mean that would. Thank you, Stephanie, for that observation. I mean, I can understand the sentiment. I mean, the report was absolutely diabolical. I mean, and quite clearly there are serious governance challenges at that organisation that the DFE need to address. I'm just not really understanding. I can understand why we might want, you know, broadly to understand where things are going. But I sort of agree with officers. I don't really understand. It's not really the remit of this committee, I guess, unless we have concerns about the council's statutory responsibilities in terms of oversight, would be my view. I'm just a bit concerned that obviously we've got a number of schools right across the local education authority that technically, you know, are poor performing, etc. We've had other such Ofsted reports, and I don't think we've had necessarily briefing papers here all the time. So I'm just a bit concerned about that precedent, I guess, that we're setting on the council. But I do understand, Chair, why you want to do that. But yeah, I sort of agree with officers. Thank you.
Thank you for that, George. That's why I said I'd be guided by Celia, but I would personally like to receive a briefing paper. Thank you. Stephanie.
I mean, all I was going to mention on the work programme really was just that if everybody can please take note of the dates for the performance data workshops. And they will be on Teams. We have one arranged for May, and we also have one arranged for September. But also going back on what's just been said by Celia and Councillor Perfect, we do have to be careful in asking for that kind of level of information from individual schools, because it isn't really the remit of the committee. But I suppose as chairperson, you can speak to Celia about your concerns.
Thank you, Celia and Stephanie. Always sound advice. I will talk to Celia outside of this committee. Appreciated. Okay, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Mark. Oh, sorry. I did have to top up my medicine this evening, so that's my excuse. Mark, the only thing you missed is we've got some really good online training. We've got to keep a lookout for it and make sure we attend the workshops. I'm really sorry. No, go.
Your mic.
Yeah, all it was is that I know I brought it up. I brought it up previously with regards to the ICB attending the children's, which is done by lots of councils across the country, and I did bring it up recently following the focus visit, and we're all united in wanting our children's services to reach outstanding, and there's an organisation that had the only negative point in that focus visit, which was to do with the ICB. I know that on the section that they come up that they weren't meeting their requirements, we do get to speak to them at corporate parenting, but corporate parenting is not scrutiny. And the function of this committee is to scrutinise and hold to account anyone or any organisation that will affect outcomes for our children. And I think it's something that really needs to be looked at, because we will go to our Ofsted probably within the next 12 months. And if that one area doesn't improve and we fail reaching outstanding after all the hard work that's been put in, it will be down on us as a scrutiny committee for not actually holding them to account. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was pleased to see your email, which you sent to Councillor Dan MacDonald, and I'd like to be guided by Ailish, really, because we do a lot of cross work. Ailish, I've been to health. Leah's accompanied me. You were invited, but let's take officers' advice. But thank you for bringing that up. And I know Dan replied to you as well, didn't he? Oh, okay.
So there are lots of areas of ICB business that do actually get scrutinised here, but it sits under partnership commissioning. So, for example, tonight, the North Kent Mind Therapeutic Alliance is ICB business. It's jointly funded and it sits under partnership commissioning. However, I would agree with you in terms of the initial health assessments and the performance around that. We know that the performance is very adversely affected by those children who are placed out of area. I do think it's an area that the committee could hold the ICB to account for. I have actually already had that initial discussion with the designated nurse for looked after children, Nancy Sayer, who you'll know from Corporate Parenting Board, and flagged that with her. The slight problem that we have is the restructure that's happening in the ICB at the moment, and I'm not clear after the end of March who will be responsible for that. So if we put it onto the forward plan and then try and work through that about who should be coming forward to speak about that, as I said, I have already flagged that the committee would like to know more about what the ICB is doing around that with Nancy.
Are you happy with that, Mark? Thank you. Vice Chair.
Okay, I'm glad you're back out the dungeon, Mark. But I move that we note the report and agree the work programme, plus a briefing note on Wayfield Primary and...
We can't have that one, sorry. Nothing on Wayfield. I'm going to talk to Celia about Wayfield,
Was that
but
separately?
that's out of here, yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Sorry. Is that right? That's right.
In that case, I move that we note the recommendations within the report and the work around the ICB that has now escaped me exactly. Can someone remind me exactly what?
So,
Agree with the ICB that the looked after children's initial health assessments will come to this committee.
And is that seconded? Thank you, Adrian, and agreed. Brilliant. Thank you all very much, and especially our two newcomers. It's lovely to have you on board, and have a safe journey home. The tunnel is closed, so do be careful. There'll be a bit of traffic. Bye-bye.